Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 23rd, 2024 Town Council meeting. I would ask that everyone stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
It's the delay.
Kathy always gets me.
I would ask at this time that we bow our heads and take a moment of silence to reflect on everything that's been happening recently. I'd like to extend my prayers and a speedy recovery to the officer in Wilbraham that was shot, and also to all the emergency personnel that went out there, the first responders. We know it's difficult on them also. Thank you. At this time, I need to announce per Mass General Law that this meeting is being audio and video recorded by LCAT, and I would have to ask if anyone in the audience is recording the meeting. If so, please state your name for the record. Okay, seeing none, we're going to move right on. Number 3, public comments. Jenny, did anyone sign up for public comments?
No, no one signed up.
And Don
Nobody's
is
on.
no one's on.
Nobody's on for public comment.
Okay, so
What?
comments, council comments. Is there any counselor with any comments? So I would like to just extend condolences to the family of Larry Levine. Larry was well known in town, an attorney, past selectman, past school committee member. Just a truly outstanding person. I had the great pleasure of knowing him and calling him friend, and he passed away. And it's really tough to see people that meant so much to us when this happens. Any other council comments?
Thanks.
I hope you guys are going to talk more later tonight. Town manager report. We really didn't have a town manager report this meeting, I'm assuming, or do you? Or
I do not. You'll hear enough from me, I'm sure.
yes, we have quite a bit going on afterwards.
Okay.
Communications, correspondence, and announcements. Annual assessment certification. So we have from Diane Bishop, the annual certification. Jeannie, should we read into the record the certification?
I would think so.
Is there someone that would like to read it?
That's the one thing I didn't get. I will. if you-
Are you talking about this
The
part?
assessment certification.
Sure.
Thank you.
So dated January 18th, 2024, assessment certification. I hereby certify that the information contained herein is a true statement of the assessment records of the town of East Long Meadow. The information was taken from the fiscal year 2024 real estate records. Fiscal year 2024, assessment date January 1st, 2023, land location 305C Maple Street, parcel ID 6-9-A, land area 5.37 acres, land value $1,080,100, building value $2,619,500, total value $3,699,600, number of parcels 1 parcel. Note 305 Maple Street 6-9-0 is included in the DIF district but is tax exempt. I attest that I am the officer having legal custody of the records referenced above, which are official records kept within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Signed, Diane L. Bishop, the Director of Assessing.
So for the members of public that don't know, the town of East Long Meadow, along with Long Meadow, had created the DIF district, which was right on the border. It entailed the property, which used to be the East Long Meadow Nursing Home. The The property on our side is tax exempt. The property on their side is taxable, and the revenues and all generated from this went to redo that intersection a few years ago, which improved tremendously. Absolutely wonderful program, and it worked out perfectly. And we are required every year to do an assessment certification based on that. Thank you. Public hearings. I do not believe we have a public hearing. So orders of the day, licensing matters. We technically have to wait till 6:15.
I would wait till 6:15 since that's on the agenda.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to move out of order to 8A2 and then continue until such time as 6:15.
I move to move out of order to 8A2 and continue until such time as it's 6:15 to return to the order of the agenda.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We have to do everything with roll call tonight. Mr. Torsia?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
I am a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
And Kathy?
Yes.
Thank you. So the next order of the day is Elm Crest Country Club. So if you guys remember at the last meeting, I had told you that there were some issues with Elm Crest, their liquor license, not having inspections. And so this is just an update to let you know that myself, Tammy, Spencer from the Health Department, David Gardner from the Building Department, the Fire Department, all met with Dave Fleury on site to discuss the situation and what steps they need to do and in what order to come back into compliance. We felt as though this was the best time of year, especially at the golf course with it being closed. It gives them multiple months before the season opens to get everything in order. So just wanted to give you an update on it, that it did happen, the meeting did take place, and they are moving forwards. Any questions?
I assume then that they're like going to remain in business, because it seemed like they closed abruptly, did they not?
So from what I understand from that meeting from Dave is they would still like to go forwards with their liquor license, and they're hoping to continue on with a golf course. Again, he didn't say 18 holes, he didn't say whether they were cutting it down in size, but he did say that he would like to be moving forwards.
I have a question.
Sure.
The license reads that it's a on-premises license, correct?
That's correct.
So he would have to identify what the premises are.
So the license entails the entire golf course. And the reason it was done that way is because they have the cart that drives around to all the holes on the whole course. So the license pretty much states the entire property.
So a premise could just be the parcel.
It's the whole parcel, exactly. Any?
On the liquor license, Marilyn, the description of the premises is right on the license itself, and it's reflected from whatever application was last approved, because the application that goes to the ABCC has to have the premises description, which is carried on over to the license. And it does say 2016, there's a change of management, and then they included the pool area, the golf course, and the beverage cart. That's when.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's very well spelled out actually on the license, so. And Mr. Fleury was very outgoing, was open to, you know, all the different comments and all, so. So we'll see where we go from here.
Here, Ralph, instead.
You think 6 minutes is enough for you?
You're having the ship tonight.
What's the thought of the board?
I really would like to give the school committee time. And
So would there be a motion to further move out of order, skip over 8B1 and go to 8B2?
We probably
So
need-
moved.
how about we go to approving the minutes?
Yeah.
We can do that. 8C?
Right, right.
That'll take 30 seconds, but is there a motion to move out of order to consider 8C?
So moved.
Second.
Third.
Again, roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
And Kathy?
Yes.
Okay, next up is January 9th open session minutes. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the January 9th, 2024 open session minutes.
I'll second that.
The motion made and seconded and needing an additional 5 minutes. Is there any comments? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
I am a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
And Kathy?
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Why don't we do the zoning bylaw?
Well, why don't we go to 8D, old business? There is none.
Nice.
It took a few seconds.
The kenneling amendment, that's going to be referred to the planning board anyway, right?
Yes. Do we want to go to?
What about the
8E?
discussion of life insurance?
That-
The kenneling should be straightforward. I would suggest we go to 8E1.
Okay, okay.
That's just a continuation, so we should be able to discuss the proposed zoning bylaw amendment regarding kenneling.
I move to move out of order to 8E until 6:15.
Is there-
Second.
Roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
I am a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
And Kathy?
Yes.
Okay, so we received a request for a zone change.
See if there's anyone in the audience.
And is there anyone in the audience here?
I thought so.
If you would like to come forwards,
I'm here on behalf of Ms. Lori Curley. She's going to be present momentarily. I'm happy to get started. I think she'll probably walk in maybe as I'm talking.
okay? And could I have your name?
Attorney Robert Ferris.
Thank you. So what we received was a petition for a zone change to change the table of use, the land use classification under commercial kennel to, instead of no in the industrial section, to amend that to a special permit.
That's correct.
Apologize.
Oh, that's okay. We're actually running fast today.
That's good.
Not usual. So being the petitioner, I am going to open it up to you if you'd like to say a few words regarding.
Sure. Hopefully it's a little bit of a fun topic. I'm here on behalf of Ms. Lori Curley tonight. She's a manager of a doggy daycare currently.
I'm the owner.
15 owner, and she has a manager that's been working with her for 25 years.
So I'm going to stop you just 1 second, just for notice that I know the location and I am employed there. I do plow the snow there. So, of which I have never met Laura.
Lori,
no conflict.
yes,
Lori, but I
yes.
do plow the snow there.
Yes.
And I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, thanks, you do a good job.
And I will not be voting on this.
Okay,
So with that being said, please continue.
So she currently has a grooming business already in place. It's a doggy daycare. So my hope would be that it doesn't change foot traffic too much. That might be a planning board, zoning board issue, but she already has the, equipment in place, or at least a lot of the equipment in place. She has a location in place. And we're not asking for a new law to be issued into existence. This is just an amendment to an already existing law that has already been contemplated. And we're just asking that it be changed from a no in industrial zone districts to a special permit, giving you guys, or giving the planning board, zoning board oversight of the location, hash out the details. Again, it shouldn't affect traffic too much because it may stagger the pickup and drop off of the dogs, but there's already pickup drop off going on. The case law that I've read about kenneling seems to suggest that most issues in towns have been about noise complaints and barking, but if it's in an industrial zone district, I wouldn't think that there'd be noise complaints. I would also just state real quick that there's already precedent for this. Granby has special permit requirements. There's doggy daycares in plenty of the towns around here, and I believe some of them also have special permits. So again, just an amendment, not whole cloth, new law or anything like that. And I'd certainly ask that you guys refer to the planning board for further evaluation.
So I am recusing myself and asking Marilyn, the vice president, to take over.
Hi, nice to meet you. Okay, we are in receipt of your documentation, which is perfect. I personally looked through and, aside from changing that one piece, what you're asking is relatively simple.
Yes.
With the exception of the town, in its wisdom years back, voted to not allow a kennel in any zone in town.
Mhm.
Not just the industrial zone or the residential zone, in no zone. Historically, the process here is to make the presentation to us, and if we feel it's a valuable request, then we refer it to the planning board, and they go through the issue of what you're asking to do as far as changing the zoning bylaws, and they will make a recommendation. And then based on their recommendation, you come back to us, and we have, as a legislative body, the authority to either approve or reject the zoning change. So I don't know if anyone else has any comments regarding this particular application, but that's generally what we do. We don't get into the nuts and bolts of why we should or shouldn't have it, or why wasn't it voted on years ago. That's generally done at the planning board.
I figured as much.
Okay, all right. So, anyone else?
I feel like, we're not necessarily deciding tonight whether we want to change this. It's more so just allowing.
We're deciding the value of what's being requested, and I think it's reasonable
yeah.
to send it to the planning board.
Yeah, I think it hits that bar pretty easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Do we have a motion, Connor?
Sure. I move to refer to the planning board for the recommendation to the council, the proposed bylaw amendment regarding kenneling.
A second?
Second.
Thank you, Kathy. Roll call vote. Jonathan?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Ralph abstains.
I have recused myself.
Marilyn, yes.
Yes.
Connor? Kathy?
Yes.
Okay. We're all set.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the snow plowing. Sounds like it's good.
Thank you very much. Didn't realize until last minute
Sorry.
that I actually did that work. It is after 6:15, so I would look to move back to 8A1, licensing matters, the 6:15 disciplinary hearing for Nuez DBA Zane Smoke Shop. Is there anyone here from Zane Smoke Shop?
Right.
Proceed without.
Don, did you say he was there?
No, he's here.
Oh, right
Oh.
there.
He's there. He's in the audience.
Hey, guys.
Oh, there you are.
How are you
Okay,
guys?
would you
Sorry,
say your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Zain Thala. How are you guys doing?
Very good, thank you.
Thanks.
So Zane, we've brought you here for a hearing based on the fact that we received from you a bill of sale stating that you had sold the business. The current liquor license that you hold was never transferred. You no longer own a business. The ABCC has said that a new owner of the business who doesn't hold a license cannot benefit from your license. It's two separate entities. There was no transfer of the license. So what we are looking to do, because we know that you've sold the facility, we have the bill of sale, is to revoke the current liquor license. So that way there it becomes available if the new owner chooses to apply for it.
Correct.
Do you have any questions?
Absolutely no. I don't have any question. I just want to I just sold out. Like I'm just gonna help the guy out right now. I'm just gonna give him my lawyer number and so he can just go ahead proceed with it. I already provided him with the number. I think I haven't got in contact. I was overseas. I just got back like a few days ago. So I'm just gonna get in contact with him and then I'm just gonna let him know about the lawyer. And then after that he can proceed with the application and all that. So the rest is up to him. Good luck with him. So
Okay,
that's it.
so I would ask the council members if you have any questions for procedurally or anything like that.
I do have a comment or a question.
Sure.
And it was based on some things that we sort of tossed out as possibilities. I understand from the clerk that that the new owner is making headway in trying to go forward with a new license, is that correct?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Is it necessary to actually revoke? I'm just looking in terms of, we know it's, the ownership is under new management, there's a new owner. And we know that he has intentions to acquire the license properly. So
it would either be that we revoke it. Kathy, sorry.
Excuse me. To answer Marilyn's question, if I may, I do believe that it is necessary to proceed with the revocation of the license because regardless of the fact that Mr. Ali is trying to proceed with his new application and the business has been sold to him, the purpose of Mr. Tala being here this evening is to answer the numerous repetitive violations of the health department and the ABCC. So it's incumbent upon the council to address those violations and to go forward with some action.
understood.
This action will have no bearing on Ali's ability to apply for a license. All it does is revoke the license that was held by Zane's and to acknowledge the violations innumerable. I have to continue to say that because violations were incurred in spite of their being in a period of should have been closed and not selling, and violations continued. So I feel very strongly that the council needs to move forward with revoking that license.
So I think,
I'm okay with that.
yeah, I think the main
Is
question,
there anything, I'm so sorry, can I add something in if I'm allowed to speak?
yes, go ahead.
All right, so the thing is that as she mentioned right now too, I sold the business and everything. As being as a business owner, I own multiple other businesses as well too. That was like one of my first thing I started the stores with and everything. Now I'm completely done with the business and all that. But as you guys mentioned about revoking the license, I just want to know since he have all the inventory and everything, and there's a lot of wholesalers that don't take the inventory back and everything, so which means that this poor guy is going to go in the loss with the inventory and everything. So that's what I was just thinking about as well too. Like if I could proceed with since I'm not in the business anymore or any of that, since all the violations and happened and all that, I'm well aware of all the violations and everything too. I've been followed up with all of them, and there was a fine and all that thing. I've been following up, I've been paying and all that stuff. So everything is I'm right on the track with on everything that she mentioned about the violations and all that. But as concerned as for the business wise, I was just thinking about it. I'm not running the business right now. There's a new owner that's in the business right now. And so let's say if any of you guys own the business right now, I sold it to you guys, it's your responsibility after that. So as you have the inventory and all that stuff, and you cannot run the business and your license is revoked, and what is he going to do with the inventory? Is he going to throw the inventory in trash? That's what was one of my concern was. Because there's a lot of inventory that's there's in the business right now regarding beer and wine and everything. And as you know that if you shut down the cooler, the beer going to turn into poison. So that's another concern too. How is he gonna dispose all the beer and everything? Because he's not gonna get the license for a whole month. So if he doesn't get the license for a whole month and everything, he's not gonna be able, like, because he already, like, last time I got in contact with him, he said he's not able to sell anything, like no beer, none of that stuff. So he been like, everything like been off the shelves and all that stuff, as far as I know a little bit. But the thing is that, like, as that was like one of my concern was like, like, it should have been like, as put yourself in the same shoe step. Like if you own a business, you sell a business, new owner comes in, he have the inventory and all that stuff. What is he gonna do with something particularly like beer and wine?
So
If you-
typically on a restaurant or anything that holds a liquor license, the transfer of the license occurs before the sale of the business to make sure that it's viable as a business. But with that being said, Jeannie, if he just relinquishes the license and signs it over and says, I relinquish the license back to the town, is that faster than us revoking it?
I only know about the revocation. I don't know about the relinquishment. I think we'd have to check with the ABCC and maybe our town attorney on that.
So can we vote tonight to revoke it? But if he brings it and gives us, and then we can check with the ABCC if he just relinquished it and said, yep, okay, I'm good, I'm done.
Right. But I don't know.
I'm just trying to think of the fastest way.
Right.
The store. I think the contents of the store were sold with the store, with the business.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about the content. I'm just trying to find the fastest way moving forwards.
Well, our bylaws that we cited in the letter to Zane cited the revocation. And that's what we're going on, the revocation. So the relinquishment, I'd have to look into that more.
And I think instead of that, I mean, it's at most a 5-day appeal period. And in the 5 days, he can already be applying for the license, the new owner.
I spoke with Ali today and he's ready to apply for the license.
I think that's the best way to move forwards then,
I think so.
unless the council has a different thought process.
No, I agree with moving forward with the
So,
revocation.
so the whole thought is to try and move this process along as fast as we can so that he doesn't lose out and stuff. And that's what we're attempting to do. So is everyone, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, thank you so much. It was great working in the town, and hopefully, like, if I come back in the town, it's not regarding tobacco business or any of that. So that was it, and hopefully good luck to the new business, and I hope his license doesn't get revoked based on, like, my fault, which I acknowledge all my, like, whatever happened and everything. It was like, I wasn't a peer in the business. I was out of the country all the time. So things happen when you're never in the business, it's never run the same as it goes. So right now, I just don't want the poor guy to lose a lot of money, like, because he have like thousands of dollars worth of inventory sitting. So I just feel bad for him, actually, honestly, because it was my fault and everything, my mistake, and I just don't want him to pay for it. That's all. Like, that was one of my concerns. That's it.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion then to revoke the liquor license that was issued?
I move we revoke the wines and malt off-premises liquor license for New As doing business as Zane's Smoke Shop for violations. Go ahead.
Second.
And Jeannie, do we need to add anything in that we are allowing Ali 30 days to apply for this license? Or,
That could be a separate motion. I would
Beautiful,
make the
okay.
revocation,
yep, let's do it separately then. So we have,
refer to the bylaws, because this hearing is all following the bylaw for the revocation.
so pursuant to 354-5 of
The town bylaw.
the town bylaws,
Right.
correct? That's
Correct,
exactly what you
correct.
were saying.
And
I heard
Connor
you.
seconded. I did too.
So we have a motion on the floor. It has been seconded to revoke the liquor license as spoken and as referenced under subsection 354-5 of the town bylaws. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
I am a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
And Kathy?
Yes.
Okay. So we are moving forwards I thank you for being here. I thank you for letting us know everything that's going on, and I wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye, Jenny. Thank you, guys.
Okay. So at this time, do we want to consider a motion to allow the new owner of that facility 30 days to start the process to apply for what will be this available off-premises liquor license? Kathy, I see your hand.
I'm just questioning whether or not that's in fact necessary. This most recent action we just took revokes the license as it pertains to Zane's. It has no bearing on what Mr. Ali Shur, the new owner, decides to do. And if I have to defer to Jeannie for a minute. How many?
I'm going to jump in for just 1 second. So the reason we're doing this is just so that no one else can come in and apply for the license before this business owner, knowing that he wanted to do it, and the new owner, it's not his fault. So we're trying to give them like a grace period before someone else comes in and scoops it up, because this is the only one that is available.
Is that correct? I mean, I believe you, Ralph, but that you're confirming that, Jeannie, that that's the last one in that category?
Right, it's less beer and wine off premise, so you could word your motion to say the available license, the impending available license of that type or something. Because that license that he owns has a specific number, identification with the state. And that, once it's revoked, I'm sure that's just gonna go away. And also a letter has to be written to Zane to give him 5 days to appeal.
Right.
Do that too, so.
And that was my thought, is basically to give the new owner a chance so that no one else is able to slip in before he actually gets the paperwork filed.
Well, even if someone were to do that, a new applicant came on the scene, that doesn't mean that we have to issue that license to the new owner, a potentially new applicant. I'm
Typically,
just concerned that doing it the way you're suggesting makes it look preferential. Yes, we don't hold any ill will toward Mr. Ali or any, what's the word I want? You know, he should not be held responsible for the misactions of the individual he just bought the business from, but I don't know if we can protect a license like that legally. I'd be concerned about doing that because then it looks preferential. The other question, I guess, to Jeannie is, do you have any knowledge of any other interested applicants that are waiting for an opening?
Yes, I do
You
have,
do.
I do have names that, there were phone calls that inquired, but the earliest one was probably 2 years ago. So I wouldn't even know if they're still interested or not.
Okay.
To me, this one's already been in the motion. I mean, this new owner, Ali, came, he got the application today, so it hasn't been submitted, and if we got down to the wire, I guess it would be the first one submitted, if you wanted to be.
But he also knows, Mr. Ali knows that time is of the essence, if you will, that he should make haste to proceed.
Yes, I spoke with him today.
Okay.
I think ultimately it would probably be just incumbent upon him to know, hopefully he's watching this meeting or sees it the next day to know what he should do.
Kathy makes the.
So I agree. Kathy makes a very good point. And like I said, if it's the wish of the board, basically, we've already voted to revoke, leave it at that.
I don't think
And whoever comes in, comes in.
We don't want to shaft somebody that didn't make a mistake, but at the same time, we also, I think it was good for us to address somebody who did make some mistakes.
Absolutely.
Got it.
And I think in addition to that, it's not only mistakes on the prior license holder, but Even on the new purchaser,
Exactly.
if they wanted to do it correctly, they could have filed for the transfer to begin with. That's not our mistake.
So with that being said, I think we're good. We will move on to the next item in line, which is 8B, Financial Matters, which is a joint meeting of the Town Council and School Committee per the East Long Meadow Charter, Article 6, Section 1. We have members of the school committee present. If you'd like to come forwards.
Happy joint meeting day, everyone. Annual occurrence. If you allow me to open a meeting,
Absolutely.
sir. Call the meeting to order of the school committee. This is January 23rd. It is 6:35. For the record, Gregory Thompson, Chair of the School Committee, Sarah Trulio, Vice Chair, Antonella Roschilla, and Kate Leiden, and Superintendent Gordon Smith joining us today.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So just for the record, we also have our finance director present tonight, so that if we need to refer, actually, Kim,
Don't do it.
come up to a comfortable seat.
Take out all the notes.
So I believe this is the 7th time we've had a meeting like this. I believe this is 7 years since the form of government has changed. And so the charter mandates that the town council and the school committee get together at the beginning of the budget cycle to basically talk about the condition of the town, where we stand in the town, and what our thoughts are financially going forwards, so that both the town and the school committee can create a budget going forward. I'm just going to ask him to give a quick overview. I mean, the town's in good financial shape, got some free cash, which we're going to talk about later on. Do we see any downfalls in revenue or anything like that coming forwards that would make us have to adjust accordingly?
I don't necessarily see downfalls. I just don't see large increases. I think you benefited last year from a pretty big increase in Chapter 70. You know, I can't imagine you're going to see anything quite like that again.
It would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is if you look at historically the budget, the percentage increases, they were pretty low kind of before COVID. Right after COVID, I think there was no increase to the budget. The 2 years following, they've been 6% increases. So I would just say that's not something that you'll continue to be able to sustain.
Right. It's true. I believe I'm going to refer to our town manager. I know you've been in talks a little bit with the school as far as on the town side. I believe we were talking level services and COLA increase.
Yep, we had, actually Kim put out our budget memo before Christmas, and actually everybody, our budgets came in Friday. So yeah, we're our level 1 budget submissions are at level services and the 2.5% COLA. And we don't, you know, the way that we'll look at it is we'll kind of pour through everybody's level 1 budget, sort of line by line, department by department with those department heads. And if there's any room from, say, coming down from a 6%, if there's any room, excuse me, for additional positions or additional services, then we'll discuss them at that time. As Kim said, the trend does not look good for adding any new positions this year. And none have been submitted with level 1 as per our request. And that those requests can come at the level 2 meeting. if we even get to that point of the conversation, because we'll sort of know a little bit better. It's kind of hard to give any numbers now. There's not enough information yet. But at some point, when we meet with all the departments in February, we'll know sort of where the budget stands and if any new positions will be even considered. It's not looking good.
So I know the budget process, at least on the town side's been adjusted because the departments can all do it through Munis now.
Yep.
I know from years ago, like appropriations committee used to say, hey, give us your budget and then give us a list of secondary or supplemental items that you really would like, but that may not go in the budget, so that if we do have extra money, we can look to those. Again, I'm assuming that's like level 2.
That's so we meet with everybody to discuss everything. So that those discussions will all happen when we're all sitting around the table, when accounting's had time to verify the initial budget. Then we'll go through it and see if there's lines that don't look right? Or why did this go up so much, right? There's a spot in Munis where you can describe why this changed by 7% or why it went down by 4%. And so we talk about that, similar to further down the line in the process. And then, yeah, we'll sort of go over anything else they may want or need in the event that we have room for the wants or needs, is sort of how we're looking at it.
So Greg, I'd like to open it up to the school committee. I don't know if you guys have already started into the budget process, if you've started looking at things. Have you seen things that are popping up that?
We have started the process, as you know.
It's January, so it's still.
Yeah, it's a bit related, and so we're still working on level services. It's a lot for Pam, who was unable to come. She certainly wanted to be here, but was unable to be here tonight for family matters. So we're still working through the process. I know she's spoken with Kim and Tom a little bit about when we may have a budget to propose. We had talked the 19th perhaps of January, maybe the week after, because February, I'm sorry, we're already there on the 19th. What year is this?
Yeah.
And so, we'll continue to prepare that. We would like it to go through the school committee before we send it along. And we meet on the 26th of February, so potentially we would have a budget approved by the school committee for submittal. I don't know, Tom, where that lines up with your level 2. If you'd like that to be a level 1. I don't know how you want that. I know in the initial memo, it sounded more like the level 2 that you're requesting. So do you want us to hold back? How would you prefer that, I guess, or Kim?
Yeah, I guess it's going to depend on how long it takes this information to sort of, then we have to schedule these meetings with all the departments. So does that seem?
Yeah, one thing I will say, we can roll the town side to level 2 prior to rolling the school side. So even if, we're meeting with all the departments and we want to move the town side so that, Tom can make different recommendations for level 2, you can do that and then just wait until the end of February to get your level 1 in, and then we can just roll it at that point.
So then when would we submit level 2? And specifically, if we have any additional requests above level services, which I guess is the differentiation between level 1 and 2, sounds.
Right, I would just adjust once we roll 2, if you have those adjustments, make them in level 2. Once that happens.
But you're going to do level 2 for the other departments before we submit 1. Do you want just our level 2 is my question.
So it's easier to have your budget in level 1 so that when we run reports, we can see consistently what level 1 to level 3 looks like as a whole town.
Okay. Now, in terms of, there's some discussion, I know, thank the town funded the school and whatnot, but of cuts to the school department, is that something that this committee is looking to make in terms of staffing? I know we're talking big picture right now in level services, but we're concerned some of that language came about. So do we have a consensus of this committee in terms of what we should be looking to do? Are we up against that?
So I think from the guidance, it's basically you look towards your level services. You know, and again, I don't know employees or anything like that, what you have, what you need. But you're planning on level services. We've done a 2.5% COLA increase, which I'm assuming the school contracts and all is probably very similar to that.
We are just beginning our Unit A negotiations, which will directly impact this, so we won't actually have those. We can make some assumptions as we go through the budget process, but those will come along further in the process. It's just, it has to line up 1 out of 3 years. It lines up oddly, like it does here. So we don't do a direct COLA, as you say, but once we negotiate the contract, then we're able to apply those changes and create the level services, a true level services at that point.
But I guess from my perspective, what I've said to our town manager and all is, years ago, it used to be put in anything you want into the budget, get it as fat as you can. If they cut a little, hey, great. And then spend it all right before the end of the year, whatever you need to, because if you don't, you're never going to get it again. And I'd like the philosophy to be a little bit different, to put in what you need, look at the services, you know, if you had something in that you never use, probably don't need it, you know, and give us a realistic budget. If 3/4 of the way through the year, you come April, whatever, and all of a sudden you realize that like the out of tuition is higher and you need additional funding, at that point you come and say, hey, listen, we expected it to be this, we need this, you know, we need additional. And that way there, it's more realistic budgets. And I have to say, I mean, the last couple of years, the budget process, it's just gotten better and better and better as we go along. I know on the town side, I wish we were able to give more money into capital projects. We held back on capital so that we could fund expansions and stuff within the departments. And
my concern is, as you all know, and I've made this clear, you know, clearly throughout, there's no disguising it, that the finance subcommittee makes recommendations. And last year I sat through every meeting, Marilyn, you were there, and one recommendation was made to cut the school budget and no other budget. And I felt it was arbitrary, and I made that clear to that meeting as well. What I'm concerned about is rhetoric that we've heard already from members of that committee that, just for a reminder, and I know you all know this, it's not required by the charter to have that committee. I believe that this is the board that should be discussing the budget as opposed to that board, because it's not an elected board, it's appointed by one person. So these are my concerns. I wanted to bring them to all of you so that if you had either agreement in terms of, yes, cut the school budget now, so we could plan on that, or based on preliminary information, level services look pretty safe. So come with that and be ready, because there are some things that we are in need of, just as the town is. I'm sure that, Tom, you've heard of other departments that say, we could really use this. You know, we'll honor the request for level services, but we could really use this, and here's the reason why. We have a couple of those things. I appreciate, and so does the committee and the administration, that the town has acknowledged that school is a priority in this town and has funded by a mandate, I would say, by the vote for the school. But I also realize that there's a direct impact to the taxes of this town. So I would like to collectively work with all of you to come up with a budget that best represents the wants of the towns. And maybe if it means cuts, then we look at it holistically. But to put the cuts on the burden of education just because we got a funding from the high school, which again was a mandate, a 2-to-1 vote, I don't see that's the way we should go about it. I'll give you an example. If we ever fund a public safety complex, which I know there's been discussion for that, are you then proposing cuts to police and fire, right? And I would say probably not. That would probably not be part of the conversation. I'm only bringing this up because we're here to talk about the budget. And as we were going through the process, this came up from multiple members of that finance subcommittee. Again, an appointed board that filters our budget and Tom's budget before you all, I know you see it, but before you get to vote on it finally. So I would love that this group did that work, and I know 4 out of 7 of you already do, right? So most of you are there anyway, but we're concerned that we're going to go through the process And we're gonna get to that meeting with the finance subcommittee, and multiple members of that board will say, we need to cut your budget because those 5 people believe that. But you all don't believe that. So I'm asking you all to kind of think of that, maybe not now, maybe we need more information from Kim and Tom to move forward. But what I don't want to do is get to that meeting and have to convince 5 people that I don't even know who are going to be there yet. I know a couple of them probably, that this is really important, right? I'd rather convince all of you. And so that's why I bring up these points. Let's do this together though. I mean, I give all of you credit, all of the people at this table credit, because we volunteer our time mostly. I mean, we get paid for it too, but we want to be here. We want to do what's best for the town, right? So let's do it collectively, because we're in good financial shape, I believe. I'm going to stick around for the free cash, and I think that's pretty substantial right now, probably higher than I've seen in a very long time. So it's quite an opportunity to move forward, and maybe we make capital investments. You know, I mentioned to Tom and Kim as we went through our process of building, and we met with lots of citizens. It was a great opportunity, and people would come up after our forums and say, here's what we really need. And the things that rose to the top, 2 things that rose to the top, well, 3, schools, number 1. But the other 2 things, roads, right? We need roads, money spent on roads desperately. So if we have $10 million in free cash, we should, I think, look to spend some substantial money on roads, because it's a direct quality of life issue. People feel better about East Long Meadow if they're not in potholes all the time. It's a reality, right? It's a real thing. Yes, would we like to spend it on, different things, computers, furnitures in the school, other capital project? Yes, but the roads are a direct impact. The other thing is affordable housing, much more difficult to work on. And when I say affordable housing, I mean reasonably priced housing. It doesn't have to fit into that criteria, but the number of people that said, we are in favor of education in this town. We are worried about increased taxes in this town. We live in a large house and perhaps our kids are left already, big tax bill. We have nowhere to go in East Long Meadow. We want to move somewhere smaller. It doesn't exist. I can't move with my significant other. There's no way for 2 people to go. So that's a bigger issue, and I talked with Tom a little bit about it, but I just want to throw those 2 things. That's a long-term issue. The capital one, the roads, maybe we can address it now or soon. But the affordable housing, I think if we all collectively, and I'm in on it, I heard the passion in people's voices. It's a real thing. Young people too, just out of college, want to come back to East Long Meadow. Where are they going to live, right? So zoning issues, right? Jonathan, you know zoning, right? You worked on it yourself. But there's opportunities to do it, but we have to put some effort to it. And I know we get busy and we work on budget and we worry about other things, but those are things that are really affecting people and their taxes, right? So let's work together. I just don't want to get to that meeting and be caught and say, all right, you got to cut your 6 people out of your budget because those people feel like that's what we should do. I want to know what you all feel like we should do. So anyway. Thank you.
So, last year, we transitioned 3 employees from the ESSER grant to the school budget. And I think the ESSER grant that you received the last is supposed to be
ending in September,
December, something like that, September 20. So I think at that time you guys had like 1.6 million in it. I don't have to tell you, I don't want you to lose any of it. And I know it's got to be allocated by then. What's the thought process going forwards? I know last year you had mentioned that you were going to try and transition the other 3 paralegals into the regular budget this year. Obviously, if we're doing level services, that's supposed to be increasing. So I'm just trying to get a feel. Is there enough funding in order to carry them on? Is there not?
Yeah, so
these are, like I said, open questions as far as, I know that was a high priority having them.
Well, so the discussion continues, but we are looking at not rolling those positions necessarily into the operating budget. So as of now, we feel that there are other priorities. And so, yes, ESSER will go away. And our goal with ESSER originally was to not create that financial cliff, right? So to not create something that all of a sudden ESSER is gone and we have 10 employees like other towns have done. They have done it more than not and create positions that are no longer have funding. This committee and Gordon and Pam and I have specifically tried to not create cliffs at all possible. So to answer your question, probably not the 3 paraprofessionals. As I said, we do have other needs, other requests that would go above level services. We had conversation about it last night. We're still working on those. One thing that we had lengthy discussion on, mostly was me, was differentiation. So we have so say we have an FTE, a full-time employee already that's funded through at will, okay, an at will employee, and they know that year by year it's subject to funding, right? This specific employee, we're finding that we have a need for that employee, and the need will not go away. So part of the discussion was, well, transfer that over to operating budget. Now, the money's already
In operating budget.
the money's already in operating budget in the at-will category, but it's never come through as a new FTE, a new full-time employee, right? Because new full-time employees, we think of those that we add to the budget. So the above-level services, we add them in. So how do we categorize that one specifically? Because there's no additional cost. They're already able to apply for benefits if so desired. And so it's not really a budget thing, but it is a long-term commitment thing, right? And so do we call that level services? Do we call that a new FTE? And I say that because I believe that we need to, as a whole, have a better understanding of how many employees have. Because Ralph, I know what you're trying to do is how many employees we have and how many we keep adding each year. 15 years on this school committee, I've seen a lot of positions added to this town, and I know we have issues funding their retirement, right? So we have to look at that holistically, but we all need to do it similarly across the board. So I don't know if that requires more conversations, perhaps with Kim and Tom and maybe Pam and Gordon, or and you know, us involved a little bit to some extent, but I'd like to have some better clarification on how we actually even present that to you, because it's a request that we have. But is that level services? Do other departments, does the town side have at-will employees?
Not any on
I don't think so.
staff.
So just issues like that, like open transparency, we want to be out there on everything, and we want to do what's best for the taxpayers and the tax dollar, right? But how we do it collectively is the question.
We have some at-will employees, don't we, like temporary employees and stuff on that idea where we hire as needed, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton though.
So again, I'm not sure even how those are classified. Are they classified as just temporary employees? I believe I've seen that in the budget where it's, actually, I think IT, sorry, Ryan, I'm gonna put you on. Don't you hire some like summer help? And again, I don't.
Those are interns though, right?
Are they interns? Are they
A little bit of both.
temporary? Are they, again,
Election workers and stuff.
I think
Do you have some that are funded by grants? Do you have grant-funded full-time employees?
No, not really.
So Kim, can I ask you, do you know, so take a snapshot in time, maybe it's January 1, the number of FTEs employed by the town?
Not offhand.
Not even offhand, is that an obtainable
Well, yeah, I mean,
data point?
I'm in the process of creating kind of a classification of all the positions in the town, because it's been very difficult for me to get a handle on how many positions each department has, how many are allocated when they add a new position, like, what is the process for that? So I'm in the process of kind of preparing that. So I think it'll be something I'll be able to get.
So I think the big step in here is, like, obviously right now, we just don't have enough information to paint a picture. We all, like Kim said, we can't keep doing 6%. So when step 3 happens, which is the manager and the superintendent meet, whenever that is, and we have more information, we'll have to make those decisions on the fly. We can't submit a 6% budget again. So if that means
As a town.
level services, yeah, as a town, level services isn't even good enough to achieve that, then we're kind of not even going to be able to do level services.
Right, but so as a strong town manager,
Right. It's hard to answer your questions.
you don't even know our percentage on level services, and I know, so we
That's
can't
what I-
help you answer that question. But I just want to get there collectively together, because some departments will be above 6%.
Yep.
Fair? And some will be well below.
Yep.
And so to say there's a strict number is arbitrary, but to say that you, Tom, as a town manager, have a grasp of the whole picture and can say, okay, the school committee and superintendent came with this budget, and I recommend this budget
Yep.
because I believe what they say, and I believe it fits into the big picture.
And I believe that that's why it's in the budget process in the charter, so that we can have those conversations.
Right.
I 100%.
But then after that, it goes to a committee that's not in the charter, and they change it.
Well,
They
Greg,
bring
we have these conversations all the time.
They may
on.
make a
the
recommendation,
time to have it with them.
change it.
Right.
They make recommendations, fair. But I can't remember
Is it your
any.
prerogative to have an ad hoc committee if you want? I mean, like, I
It
don't.
is, and I'm not,
Okay.
Tom, anybody can have a committee they want. I am just saying the process, fair, that's a fair point, Tom. It is a fair point, and I'll leave it at that. I would just like to know how the number that ad hoc committee comes to, how do they arrive there? Because the last time we sat there, it seemed just arbitrary that I'm gonna cut this department, we're gonna make that versus here's the, because I believe how it should work is you and Kim come up with a number, and that'll happen later on, right, based on revenues. And then from the number, you work backwards. So you put all the level services in, then you see what you have left, which is kind of what you're probably gonna do, right? And then you, based on your experience and knowledge, allocate what you would recommend we use the rest of that number for. Fair?
The rest of the number?
It happens every year, Tom. Unless you say we're not gonna add anything new,
I got
it happens, right? It's there.
I just
You
actually,
may.
okay. One thing I want to point out, right now, it's very early. We don't have state numbers. We don't have really good revenue numbers. There's not a lot that we can really put into kind of a recap, right? I think you've all seen the recap sheet that I do that goes, it gives you all the years. So ultimately, the goal is that once we know what your request is, once we know what the town's request is, that goes into that recap, so we can see how that's gonna affect excess levy. We're totally driven by excess levy. We can't increase the budget as much as we want. So if we put those numbers in there, we're negative, well, then we know we can't do that. The problem with saying the school can only get a 3%, or the town can only get a 3%, or is that if you come in at 6 and we come in at 3, or vice versa, the total percentage is gonna be completely different, and it's still gonna throw off that. So without knowing what everybody's requesting and putting it in, seeing how it actually affects everything, it's hard to give you any answers right now, until we really know.
I appreciate that. I understand that, I appreciate it, but at some point, you will know what that levy capacity or the desired levy tapping into the bottom line number is, right? That number comes to fruition at some point.
An estimate.
Right, and so from there, your group collectively will go and look at all departments and level 1, and then any additional level 2 requests, and say, I believe this one is valid, a high priority, and this one is a lower priority, these 2 additional requests. So I, as town manager, will recommend to the council, the legislative body, this is the budget that I believe the town should fund, and this is why I believe it. Right? And I believe then the legislature should take that and collectively work through it as much as the Finance Oversight Committee does, because then you all understand it. And 4 of you already do it anyway. So it would just require 3 more to go through the process. I know it means a lot more meetings of the council, but as the legislature, you're number one of 2, budget and policy, right? And so to not go through that whole process, it's difficult for me to convince a non-elected official why our budget is so important, because they have priorities that don't necessarily reflect the voters. You are all voted in. So you reflect the wants of the voters, and if you don't do what they want, you know what they can do? They can vote you out, right? When you put in another committee who are all good people with good intentions, I believe that, and knowledge, but they don't run for town council, and they don't know the whole picture, and they don't know the backstories. I sat through that last round, multiple new members who know a lot less than the 3 that don't sit on that board or sit in that room with that council. And so all I am asking is just for thought on how we do this, so that we don't show up in the room on that one day, and because it's the priorities of one person who assigned that whole committee to cut the school budget, that we have to then make a fight and an argument to get back to level services, just because it's the priority of that one person, which is why I led off to say, what is the priority of the council? Because I believe that's what this meeting should be. but it needs time, Kim, to your point, because we don't know what the bottom line is. But should we cut positions in the school just because we got a new high school? Because that was the point that was brought up, and that's what I'm afraid of. And I don't believe we need to cut positions in the school. I don't believe it's necessary budget-wise, but maybe it is.
So I think one of the issues that the state has created is the legislative body, when it comes to the school, we can't go line item by line item and say, geez, do you really need, 238,000 for this? How about we cut 38,000 out and do 200? We can give you X amount of dollars to fund the school. That's it. How you choose to break it up and spend it is up to you. When it comes to the town side, we see every single department and every capital project, and I'll be the first to say I've spoken up. I made a huge to-do at a meeting because I didn't think certain capital projects were necessary. And I said, no, we can't, that's just a.
Before they came to the council, you said, no, don't bring them? Is that what you're saying?
Actually, the night of the budget hearing, at the public hearing, I spoke up and said, no, these just aren't right. The numbers don't work. We shouldn't be voting on this. And the reason being is because I can look line item by line item by item in the town budget, and I can say, I don't believe IT needs this extra, or I don't think this. I can't do that with the school. All I can say is, here's a chunk of money for the school, and then it's up to you to spend. Last year, I'll be truthful, I was at every finance committee meeting, subcommittee meeting, and I looked at it and I thought, hey, with this amount of money left in ESSER, $100,000 off of the total that we give to you could be made up under the ESSER. It still leaves you plenty going forwards. And I thought it was a reasonable request. It didn't seem like a lot. It wasn't that we were cutting your total funding or anything. I believe you had asked 4.9% last year increase.
3.9.
3.9. And the 100,000 was 0.2% or something.
But it was arbitrary.
But again, it wasn't arbitrary. It was myself looking at it saying, you still have a lot left in the grant that has to be spent by a certain time. And again, so I know what you're saying, hey, the subcommittee's not elected, but I am. And I was sitting in that meeting, and that was my thought process.
But shouldn't this committee have that discussion and not the committee that's not elected? That's my point.
We had the final say, and they said no. Give them the whole amount.
Do you go, and so you said you'll look at the list and you'll change it. When do you change it? Before it even goes to level one? So before Tom gets the budgets? Is that what you were just referring to? You said you look at something and you say, IT doesn't need this, don't put it in before it goes to Tom? Is that what happens?
No. So
okay.
Typically it's after Tom takes it, looks at it, submits it. I go through line item by line item.
Before this council sees it?
Actually, it's usually when it's sent to this council so that we can have a discussion on it.
Oh.
It's not just me.
Oh, but does that discussion happen in public? Because I don't remember seeing any of those. Before the finance oversight?
I literally, on capital projects, I did it.
No, the budget we're talking, not capital though.
Well, I mean, capital is done at the same time as the budget, and it just so happened that I didn't think.
But you just referred to IT that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying that if it was IT or capital or something, and I was the only one that voted no, and everyone looked at me saying, hey, you're.
There's my point, Ralph. The committee was different than your thought, but you're the one, because you're the council president, I'm not pointing you out specifically, but now you are, that specifically appoints all the members of the Finance Oversight Committee. So in theory, they have similar thought process that you do, right? In theory, right? You want to hire like-minded people. But you just said that it was something you were so passionate about, the rest of the committee, they all voted no against this committee, right? But they had a chance to do that. What I'm fearful of is in that Finance Oversight Committee, all good intentioned people, different objectives than these people at this table. And so a lot of times I've seen that the Finance Oversight Committee makes recommendation and the council takes them. Fair? I want this council to do the work and review all those, and they make the decision because they're elected, they answer to the voters. That's all I'm asking. And if they're not able to, because it is your subcommittee, you can have any subcommittee you desire as a board, right? Then what are the priorities of the board? And what are you telling the Finance Oversight Committee? Here is the objective. Here's the bottom line number that we as a council feel you should get to. Or is that even happening? Or are you just saying, okay, Finance Oversight Committee, do your work with no objective? And we, because we're not a priority of certain members, have to make an argument to them who aren't elected. That's my whole point.
Well, I think too, the piece that needs to kind of rise to the top is having been a part of the conversation for the last 6 years with the Financial Oversight Committee. This is the first year that I really feel like we're going into those conversations, not with an air of good faith. There are public meetings where those comments were made that if the school passes, then the schools should expect cuts. And that does seem arbitrary in nature. And that does seem like that committee is casting a shadow on the schools and the development of our budget. And I think to Greg's point, we want to make sure that, again, we are in alignment with the other elected board in town and that we're making decisions that are reflective of the voting population and not necessarily individuals who aren't held to those same standards. That's where it becomes tricky because we're asking administrators at buildings to prioritize the needs of students, to prioritize the needs of teachers. We're asking Pam to do a great deal of work to go through and itemize employees so that we can be transparent in our process. And unfortunately, this year, out of all the years I've been a part of it, it doesn't seem like that we're going into this with that same idea of compromise and that same idea of negotiating in good faith around this. And because it's already been stated, it's been stated in this room. And that's really hard to go into conversations when that is in public record.
So I just want to put out there the Finance Oversight Committee is appointed each year. It's appointed by the president. They don't roll over each year. As you saw last year, there was a couple new members that I had appointed to it. I kept a couple from before. I have not appointed a Finance Oversight Committee yet.
But you did have members present at the September meeting.
Past members.
But they were cited in the notes as being members of the Financial Oversight Committee, and they were brought forward to offer their expert opinion on the term of the bond. And at that time, they did state that if it is to rise to $25, then cuts should be expected. That is in your agenda meeting notes from that meeting. And that's where it's really challenging to be doing this work and then knowing that we're going to have to go into that meeting and we don't want to face an argument. We don't want to put ourselves in the position to become adversarial, which is why, to Greg's point, we're trying to figure out what is the will of this body so that we can match the will of our body and move forward with good faith, rather than facing something that, is not necessarily appropriate, especially because we don't know the total figures. So for that to have been stated in September already sets us up to be fighting an uphill battle. And that's where it's not clear to us.
So the $25 was because that's the tax levy cap, if I'm correct. Now, granted, the school, I believe, is a debt exclusion, so that doesn't become part of it. So
I understand that, but that's not what
we're near the $25 max. So
we understand that, you're stating that, but that night, that was not what was stated, and that's public record.
if we go over to 25, there's got to be cuts because you can't legally go over it. So
It won't be the school department that brings us over
Right.
25 though, if that happens. That's all.
So,
Ralph.
yes,
Sorry.
no, I'm opening it up to the council. I've been hogging all the time.
I just kind of want to give a few kind of, I guess, observations. Being that this is the first time that I've done this process, and I can only speak for myself, I think a minimum priority of do no harm, I think in any type of budget is you don't want to lay off anybody. So that would be, if our backs were completely against the wall, I feel like that would be a last option. That being said, I feel like we have to consider what's going to happen between now and that budget. State got lower than expected revenue. Governor's done 9 seat cuts on some grants, not necessarily related to education. So, thinking of that, it's going to be important to see, what we're getting from the state and making sure that we don't have those type of cliffs. We're just coming off of all that sort of COVID era, which was great at the time, all those grants and things and opportunities, and making sure that, suddenly we then find ourselves way, underbalanced because of those grants not leaving. I think, I hear what you're saying about the Financial Oversight Committee. I mean, I think that, in terms of process, I think it makes a lot of sense to have some type of subcommittee. It all depends on, I think, who's in it. And I think, from my perspective, it is always a compromise. It's not like if it's a compromise or maybe it's not a compromise, it always has to be a compromise. We have to all work collectively as a team because, we're all, we may disagree with this number should be there and that number should be there, but we're all trying to fight for the children of the community, the taxpayers of the community, everybody. So like that is the mindset I come into every single discussion, every single meeting that I've been a part of now. Between here and my other experience. So, but yeah, those are, I think, my thoughts. I would not want to cut a single position unless there was some dire absolute need. And we, at that point, I think we'd be having a discussion about the entire budget and not just one budget, two budgets. That's just my opinion. There's 6 other folks here that have been elected, but yeah.
Can I ask Jonathan a follow-up question? Do you mind if?
Go right ahead.
Do you believe in the position of strong town manager after the new charter was developed, right?
Yeah.
That a fair, we wanted a strong town manager.
Clearly and decisively won.
So if we hire a town manager and we put the faith of the taxpayers' money in the town manager's hands and mind, and that town manager, in conjunction with all the other professionals in the town, come up with a budget that they endorse and that they want to send to the legislative body for review, right? Historically, because I've been through the process a lot, what's happened is it's come here first, and I appreciate that. Originally, it wasn't even going to do that. We had to fight for that to happen. But it goes to that Finance Oversight Committee, who's not an elected committee, and only relates to the wants of the individual that appoints them. If we take that authority away from the strong town manager and something goes wrong at the end of the years and it's directly related to the budget, then who are we to go back to with that? Or if it's excellent, right, and our tax rate has been cut and all services are made, it's not the town manager's budget anymore that you approve. So we're not creating a strong town manager. We're creating an appropriations committee, which is what we got rid of, because we were trying to take away the authority of another board and give it to you. You all have the final say on the board, on it. So I see it as the recommendation of the manager going to this board for discussion, because you all do it anyway. You all bring forward each individual, if you want, the department heads for questions that you have, right? So why is that not the discussion in the final say? Because inherently every year it's changed from the town manager's desk to your final discussion is a different budget. Most years it's different.
Well, I think as you said, it's a recommendation. I mean, I think you've seen like folks on this body don't always agree every time that a recommendation comes out of, whether it's the planning board or a bylaw committee or what may have you. I just think that, the Financial Oversight Committee gives us the valuable ability to have that sort of breakout session to be able to discuss things further and then have those recommendations. But ultimately, we're the final arbiters. So, they could give us, we want to cut 10%, we want to raise 10%, but we might just say, well, we don't want to do either of those things. We want to go, our own way. So I mean, at least the way I look at it is I weigh, what do we get initially? What ends up happening through that process? What's that recommendation? And then you look at those two things. Well, where did we start? And then where did that recommendation come from? Because, we all are thinking about, I think, different things and different factors at different times. So I don't think it necessarily heavily weighs. Maybe it has more in the past, perhaps. But I think you're looking at, a different council than there might have been.
But historically, 4 of the 7 have been in that Finance Oversight Committee discussion. So if 4 can do the work, why can't the 7 do? And I'm not calling out on people's not lack of interest, but why not the other 3?
Necessarily, I think a lack of interest. I think it's
wrong word, yeah.
Bring, certain citizens into the fold that ideally should, be hopefully representative of the community. I think that's probably the hope. But I think having, that frequency of meetings, it's not a guarantee that every single council member can make that. And you want a school committee that's going to be representative of people that may, are very interested, very invested, but may not be able to make a meeting every single, week or every other week for such a long period of time. Some of us have, jobs that might not be flexible. We might have children, we might have other factors, and you don't necessarily want a body that is only compiled of people that can make all of those meetings. So I think it delivers that balance because, we can watch the financial subcommittee matter meetings after the fact, we can review them and be able to come to conclusions if we're not there.
So I'm going to jump in. I think we're getting off subject. It sounds more like we're debating whether or not we should have a subcommittee instead of where the budget's going. So at this time, I would open it up to our other counselors. Connor, a few comments?
Just to wrap up on the Oversight Committee first, though, I would say that I wholeheartedly agree with both of you. I've been outspoken in the past multiple times about the Financial Oversight Committee, and it's not a knock against the members on the committee itself. It's just, I also disagree with the process, and I feel that it should be all 7 of us working through that line by line, not other people that are appointed. And I agree with you in the sense that I am hard pressed. I'm sure my memory is incorrect, but I don't think I've ever remembered a time from attending meetings just as a citizen up until now being on the council that the council has ever on the fly changed what we've voted on from what was recommended to us by the subcommittee. And I think that's the problem. From that, though, different points overall on the perspective of the budget process moving forward. I think similarly, of course, it's hard to know, and my opinion could change depending on what numbers coming in at, but at this point, I would not recommend or foresee wanting to cut the school budget in any capacity. So, unless something drastically happens financially, especially at the state level, who knows, but at this point, I don't.
Connor, can I just jump in real quick? So cut the school budget. So cut the funding as compared to what it was last year, because we don't know what they're going to submit for a budget this year. If they come in with a 6% increase, I'll tell you, I'll probably be one of the first ones sitting here going, 6% is not acceptable.
So that's what we want to know, Ralph. What's acceptable?
Well, no.
What's the number? 6 is 5?
From last year.
4?
No.
I think.
Level services.
Yeah, I know.
Again, I wanted to clarify just to understand what you're saying.
It won't be 6.
So my clarification would be that I don't want to see it go anything less than level services, whatever percent that happens to be. Whether it's 6 or 9, of course, we can debate about how high it should go depending on the overall town budget in the future, but at this point, I don't want to see it go less. Especially since I think once you actually get into a new high school building, there's going to be future needs and we can't take a step back beyond what we're already doing. Aside from all of that, though, from our capital meeting, I wanted to raise a thing that I think we could work on collectively is one of the requests you had was the replacement of the roof at Maple Shade. I think that was like your number 5th priority for 2.9 million, I believe. And I had asked, because I remember last year the MSBA's accelerated repair program was on hold, and now it's reopened, if we should consider trying for that. And I know there was some original reservation because, well, if we're not in the building for the 25 years or whatever, we might have to give it back. But in my naive assumption is that the time value of money of spending 2.9 now, as opposed to giving 2.9 back in the future, is a much better value to do it sooner than later.
That's a good point, because we have had discussion on that specific issue, and our original intention was to go after those fundings, and perhaps we should. But the thought is, and there's no long-term plans for the elementaries right now. We just passed the high school, as you know. Yeah, so. But are we going to be in Maple Shade for 25 years, right? And that's the question. But your point is well taken. Thank you.
What, if I may, Gordon, 15 years on accelerated repairs,
25.
25 years. Has it always been that?
Yes.
But I thought Meadowbrook, when we did the windows and doors, was less.
25. You have to commit to the building for 25 years.
Okay. Heck, a roof doesn't even last 25 years in it, so.
However, that's the threshold now, is in order to put a roof in for accelerated repair, it has to be 25 years. So at least it's matching there, and
I looked at the submission page on the application page there, and it was interesting to see the difference over the last like 5 years of like the original posted like ages had to be, whether it was like 15, 20, 25 years, what people accepted, and then what they ultimately had to change the thresholds to based on who they accepted. Some of them ended up being 30, 35,
right,
instead of 25 years.
So we have looked into, we've looked into the portal. If that's something that the school committee certainly has discussed it, and capital planning committee discussed it as well as we were going over the projects. That's a statement of interest that we would have to present to them by March 1st. Doesn't mean that you have to vote by March 1st, because then they would go through their process of reviewing however many statements of interest they've received, and then ultimately in the spring, they would determine how many they're going to accept. It looked like they weren't open last year in accelerated repair. 2 years ago, I think they received somewhere of the neighborhood of 64, and they approved 33. So.
But I think we would have to work in conjunction, because what we don't want to do is apply for accelerated repair without knowing that there's funding from the town behind it, and, you know, to get approved,
right,
and then to come forward and be denied. So I guess collectively, as we start to look as the big picture, I know you're just starting your work on that committee, we can work together.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Ultimately,
consensus.
If we were brought in, then similar to the other projects that we've been in, the town council would have to vote to fund the full amount, and then the MSBA would come in with a funding agreement. I can't imagine that we would be below 56.8%. We might be higher in terms of eligibility for reimbursement at that point, but.
It's a substantial amount of money.
Right.
It's good value.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Connor. Appreciate it.
Other comments?
I think those are all the ones that came to mind at the moment.
Matt?
Well, I'm not going to jump into the FOC.
Come on, Matt.
Hey, we kind of
thank you.
Ran that, beat that horse dead last budget season. I was on the FOC last budget season, and I do agree with Greg. At the time, I agreed that I felt some of the cuts discussed were arbitrary, as it was just the school department. I do recall us voting, I believe it was 4-1 to accept the budget as presented. I do not know if I will be on the FOC again this year, but I will say that I don't personally plan to or hope to see any cuts to the school department budget, but that also said I don't really want to see it much higher than level services. Part of that because I am an elected official and I am up for election this year, right? Just past that big school. We got the educational mandate, but it's also, that's a pretty big number. So yeah, other than that, that's all I got.
It seems like deja vu.
1 year went by quick.
Yeah,
didn't it?
right. You know how I feel about the process that we choose to use in terms of all of the issues that come before us that we have to take action on. I am a supporter of subcommittees simply because it never hurts to do a second scrutiny, to have a second scrutiny of something as large as what we're talking about. Now, I'm at those meetings as you are, and I go through the line items as Ralph does, but not all committee members function that way. You know, we all come from different walks of life. Some of us have time, some of us have to work. I mean, I get it, but it doesn't hurt to look at it. Now, I know there are certain folks that have been on the Financial Oversight Committee that approach things a little differently than we as a council would in terms of looking into the weeds of the whole process.
Bless you.
What funding is out there that might impact your budget more than anyone else in town in terms of having, dollars coming from other entities, the state, the grants that you get, that sort of thing. That might be something that influences an individual's opinion on where they're going through the process. I don't look at it that way personally. I look at, for me, it's an education to sit in that meeting, to hear the discussion, to hear from the department heads. And then when it comes time for us to vote, I'm prepared. I'm ready to make a decision because I've been there, I've listened, and I know what the concerns are. Finance committee may be a thing of the past going forward. Maybe we find as we go through this process, because as Ralph says, the budget has become more streamlined. Our town manager meets with all of the department heads and discusses these things. And it's almost like you're repeating it all at the level of the Financial Oversight Committee. So I don't argue with that. I agree with that. But I have not heard from this body that we're out to cut. I've never been out to cut personally. I do feel that we're a town, we share resources, and some of our budgets town side are extremely bare to begin with. And we have no movement in terms, unless we lay off people. And your budget equally is heavy in salary. We know that. And so there's not really a whole lot of movement either, because you'd have to be impacting your personnel. So I don't want to go into this process with a real negative black cloud hanging over our heads. I think we all care about what happens here. And yes, we voted in a new school. And I had a woman reach out to me just recently. So are our taxes going to go up? I mean, there are people that just don't get it. They're not involved. So, okay, yeah, our taxes are going to go up. It's our job to make sure that they don't go up substantially higher than what we're dealing with now. So I hope you understand that we are not of that nature to cut. We want to understand, and I would still vote for the Financial Oversight. I'm done.
Kathy, do you have any thoughts?
I don't have anything more eloquent to add to the conversation. I certainly, excuse me.
Didn't want to forget about you.
That's okay. I'm listening patiently. I certainly want to acknowledge all of Greg's points and his perseverance, because he dutifully brings them up each budget year. I don't mean that in a negative way, Greg.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
He's been sick.
I acknowledge what Sarah has brought back into the record as well. I think at this point, listening to what Tom has said, as well as what Kim has said, it's to me a little premature to talk about seating another finance committee until we have better information in front of us. And every year we're in this same position, asked to build a budget and not having a clue as to what's coming at us from Beacon Hill. So I would like to suggest we revisit this at a later time, because we don't have enough information in front of us. Let the level one work that Tom and Kim need to do play out. Greg's admitted that the school committee still needs another 30 days or so to get their level one at a place where they're comfortable with it. And at that point, I'd be willing to listen to perhaps maybe managing the review of the budget and the manager's recommendation in a different format.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say, because two things, I've said it all and I'm losing my voice again.
So unlike Connor, have not seen capital projects, capital submissions yet. But I do know there was the classrooms from last year or whatever that we had approved, and they came in like way over where we expected. And those are the things that I tend to look at to say, hey, if we can keep our budgets as close to and tight as we can, hopefully that gives us more money to be able to afford the additional, $1 million for stuff like that.
Classrooms.
I just.
But needed, they're needed rooms, as you know. I know you know that already.
I understand that. And just to think, hey, all right, we approved this only to come back and go, hey, guess what? We're really short. And that's been the process, especially with capital projects. You order a truck, by the time the truck comes in, hey, it's $40,000 more than what you were expecting. You order, and it's just, I know right now it looks like we're great on free cash, but we really haven't put a lot into OPEB and this and that. And it's like, that's going to shrink real quick. And again, classrooms and stuff. So I know I had suggested to Tom that we look at a couple $1 million this year in capital projects, or last year, I think it was 1.2 that we did, only because we're falling behind on capital.
So we had the ARPA funds too.
You could spend $10 million on roads alone, I believe that, right? And it's
27.
not that we're ever going to, is that what the number is?
27 million, that was 3 years.
It's a real concern, sure you've all heard it, but a real concern of the taxpayer. A real concern. Yeah, I know, Tom. Better you than me.
But again, like I said, I'm reopening it for last words. I think you have a general consensus. I personally don't want to see, cuts to employees and stuff. That's not where I was coming from what I'm hearing from the rest of the council. I'm hearing, hey, let's keep it, level services. I know there's contractual obligations and all. Like I said, it's one of those where we submit a good budget and hopefully we don't have to argue about anything. We approve everything. I mean, like I said, the last budget season, it was pretty amazing, actually. I don't think the council's ever gone through one that was that tight, that accurate, boom, 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 all done. And I think that's the ultimate goal of everyone. So,
Ralph, I'll just offer one final.
No, because I see Connor over here. Go ahead.
One final thought for myself. I think no, I don't think cuts are, entertained by any of us. I think the only thing that I was just, concerned about was, the voters gave us such a mandate, 70% of the vote. I'm looking at the other big ticket items, and I'm very cautious about really doing any of those. The level budget or the programs that we already have in place, I don't think just because the town gave us a 70% vote, there should be suddenly then automatically cuts. There only should ever be cuts if suddenly the revenue significantly declined or something. Then we'd have a different conversation.
Or if the budget's increasing every year at a rate that we can't sustain.
Or that.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Last word, Connor. I saw a lot of notes over there, so I was very impressed.
My last thought is, would it be helpful if we collectively have a joint meeting again, say after your level one is prepared, perhaps March or April? So that way there, rather than.
We're happy to do that, yeah.
Surprise at Financial Oversight Committee, we can hash it out directly.
Certainly happy to do that.
It'd be reasonable to ask if we sort of keep the charter so that the manager meets
Absolutely.
the superintendent.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And, right, so we can sort of hash out our level one. Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Yeah, the timing can be fluid. I'm just
Okay, all right,
beyond that time. Yeah.
all right.
And we're trying to have transparency, as we always do, with FTEs. And so if the town continues to do that, so that if we, take that snapshot in time and know maybe January 1, here's how many FTEs are across the town, then as a taxpayer, I know how many we're adding year after year, right? Because sometimes we'll add them like mid-year, we'll add an FTE, and so that kind of gets lost. And so we're all in this together, and I am so thankful for all of the work that you all do and all the folks at this table do because we're here for the right reasons. And although we may have differing opinions, and the finance subcommittee, again, I'll reiterate, no, they give their time, and I don't want to diminish what they've contributed. Because I feel like I've been bashing, it's not a bash on them. They're smart people, dedicated people, want to contribute to the town. So that's the only point I wanted to make about that. If we're all done, I'm going to adjourn this committee and let you guys get back to your meeting if that's the will.
I think we are all set. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take a motion to adjourn then, if I may. Motion made by Sarah, second by Antonella. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 4-0. We are adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
very
much. Appreciate it.
That's
Okay, now.
continue. Okay, next item is 8B2, a discussion with regards to the free cash. So, I don't know, it was here somewhere. Kim, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I am wonderful. So I don't know where it is right now. I
Tell
believe
you
it
what
was 7.3 million if I
So
encumbered certified free cash.
right, so certified cash at July 1st was 7.6 million, I'm rounding. And then it was up from 6.8 last year. And then any votes that have already been taken and any anticipated votes that I see coming to town council in the next, I guess, couple weeks, you'd be at 7.3 million, a little over 7.3.
Okay, so I asked for this to be put on because 7 million sounds like a ton of money. But I just wanted to point out, as far as like the OPEB trust, I mean, we are still way behind from a full funding of that. I know it's been a couple years since, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I believe we had put $1 million into it because we had extra money in free cash. The last couple of years, we've cut way back on what we put in. So it's something I think as a board, we should think about. Again, whether it's 500,000 or what, that we should continue to move ahead and fund that appropriately, because post-employment benefits, they're not going away. So it's something I think we need to think about. Also, capital projects. So I know from talking to our town manager, it had been approved in the past for a TIP grant for North Main Street.
Yep.
But what most people don't remember is we had to put up a portion of the money up front. I think that was a 85-15 or 90-10, something like that. We had to pay, I believe it was for the engineering.
Yeah, 100% design.
So we're going to be applying for the next section of North Main Street. If we get it, there's a chance that we're going to have to come up with, I want to say it was 500,000.
560.
560. So I mean, these are things to keep in the back of our mind. I don't want to use all the free cash and then all of a sudden not be able to support, an $8, $9, $10 million grant because we don't have a $500,000. And again, it's just one of those. I know our MLP we're looking at, and just for the engineering and designing and all, although we're hoping to use some of the ARPA money for it, there's going to be a shortfall if we approve the build out of the MLP. I had talked about stabilization funds. I had asked about them, breaking out and doing a couple different stabilization funds for different things. Obviously, everyone knows, like our municipal buildings, we're going to have to be looking ahead to do something with the police station. A lot of us took a tour of it and saw the condition it was in, and whether it's an addition or something, we have to think about that. And it may be worth taking a small chunk of money, putting it into a stabilization fund for that purpose down the road. Like I said, it's something I want to talk about. And again, I used it as municipal buildings because I know our fire department needs something, our DPW needs something, the town hall needs stuff. And you could go on and on with every municipal building. I know the rec department would absolutely love a rec center. So my thought is maybe if we have a little extra to create a stabilization fund, put it in so that down the road we can use it for that. That was most of my thought with free cash. And again, like I said, in the past, we haven't had $7 million sitting there. So sounds like we've got this huge bundle of money and all. Connor's on capital. I'm certain he can tell you that there's quite a few needs for money in this town, different projects and all. And again, I'm assuming some of the free cash will have to be used towards capital projects this year.
More than likely.
Yeah.
But this was an open discussion on free cash. And again, I wanted to bring it up just to have a conversation on it. And I don't know.
Oh, but
No. Please, first, correct you. Go ahead.
Connor.
I have 9 different points in no particular order.
Okay.
I might have the same 9.
Just gonna grab my pad.
I know you.
Yeah.
Kim, I know you had mentioned it at our capital meeting, but I forget what the number was. So like, even though we have like 7.3 at our disposal in free cash now, we still had some from 382 North Main that's kind of like committed, that's not part of that number, correct?
Well, so I mean, it's not part of free cash
Right.
because it's already been appropriated
Right.
for 382 North Main. So there is that, remaining amount, I don't remember how much the amount was at this point.
2.3.
2.3. So there is that 2.3, it's sitting in a revolving fund that could be used for the purchase of the building. If you choose not to do that, then the money needs to be released from that appropriation, and then it wouldn't flow to free cash until next year.
So I think that was one of my takeaways, is I think we should, at a future meeting, have an executive session to rediscuss that topic and figure out what we're going to do, because that's a lot of money to just sit in limbo.
Believe it's interest bearing.
Yes.
I believe we asked Don to invest that. So I don't know if it's 2.3 anymore. It may be a little bit more.
Still, but either way, if it could be put
Exactly.
to a different purpose other than.
The interest would go to the general fund, though. It wouldn't specifically stay with the
Yeah.
appropriation.
I didn't like that idea.
Money in the general fund, it's going to flow to free cash. So there you go.
Yes, I agree. And I think that would be good to do an executive session and see where we're going. Again, we'll have more discussion. Yeah.
Second, I think, as Greg mentioned previously, paving roads is a #1
Yep.
priority for me, and the amount of money that we have available to us wouldn't even get us back on track from the pavement improvement plan, but it would be a dent. Another one, of course, is the capital project list. There's plenty of things that we could put towards there. I'm sort of unsure about it, but Heritage Park, I know we've talked about it multiple times, but perhaps there could be some traction there, if nothing else, in coordination with some of the park grants.
Stop stealing all my thunder.
I had a similar thought on stabilization, whether it's different funds, and I wasn't even considering necessarily like separate building funds, but even more stabilization from a capital perspective. Because even in previous capital years, we've had this magic target number that we've tried to hit, but it's hard to get the jigsaw puzzle of projects to line up with that number. Sometimes we'd be 20,000 over, but other times we'd have like 40,000 left that we didn't hit the number that we could have. And if we could have saved that money for a future year project to bundle it, that could have helped. So that's right. And I think even just generally saving some of it, whether it's leaving it in free cash or stabilization, because who knows what's going to happen at the state level with what they may Even though they gave us increases last year, maybe they'll roll them all back next year, who knows? OPEB a little bit, I'm not super concerned about it because I don't realistically see our town falling in the way of Detroit, but it doesn't hurt to contribute some, but I don't think that should be a significant portion of our money. And then I think last would be, there's a potential opportunity, and of course it's still like a couple of years away, but whatever might happen with the Centertown district, there may be some potential town investments and redevelopment of that area that something could go towards. But I would say.
Need a job.
Yeah.
He has one thing.
Those are my thoughts on free cash.
Marilyn,
Hi.
free cash. And
Um,
again, we have multiple discussions that'll happen, so.
Part of me, first of all, with our free cash amount, is there a certain percentage of free cash that we should just leave alone? I mean, is there a guideline? Should we, I mean, I'm not in favor of spending it all. At all. I mean, I'm really not. And because we haven't even gone through the budget yet, we don't even know what our immediate needs are. There may be something out there that we might need to tap into some, additional monies for. But is there, like, if we have 7 million, would you keep 2 million in a?
We actually do have a reserve policy, and free cash is included in there, and I believe the target is 5%.
5%.
Of the total budget, so obviously those numbers increase every year.
Right.
So there is a target percentage in there for OPEB, for stabilization, for all the retained earnings, and for free cash. And I can forward you the policy. When I first got here, I started creating policies and Mary was approving them, but I wasn't planning to kind of put together the entire book until I had them all done, and then, other things happened, so I haven't completed it yet. But I can forward you the policies that have been created at this point. You can see what kind of those percentages are set to.
Okay.
And I think we're pretty far above the majority of those percentages, with the exception of, I think, one enterprise fund that's like very close.
Could I ask, with those percentages, could you give us what that number equates to percentage-wise now? Just because I don't know what 5% of what.
So, yeah, I can, I think we have kind of a, I don't know the fund.
It doesn't have to be now, but.
Yeah, well, it had to be now, but.
No, yeah.
I can send you what all the
Yeah.
percentages are, and,
If my memory is correct, we have around 10 million in OPEB, is that
I
right?
think so.
Yep.
Okay, all
Yes.
right.
Almost 11
And what's our obligation?
Oh, it's
100%.
of, I think I put the total obligation on there.
60 million or something, it's ridiculous.
69 million,
Okay, all right. Historically,
and the audit was just recent.
Okay.
The audit was just recently completed, and there will be a new number there, so I'll forward that on as well.
Okay.
Lower.
all right, historically, before we've actually gone into the budget session, if there was extra free cash, we always immediately put something in for OPEB. And I believe our OPEB account influences our bond rating.
It does.
So it's important to keep it up, and so I would like to suggest that we think about, putting something in. We've been doing 50,000, I believe. Did we do 50,000 during
100, yeah.
Yeah.
last year?
Last couple of years. Yep.
During COVID, we did 50.
0 and then 50. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, that's, I feel that's a priority that we should not lose sight of. Roads are absolutely on the top of my list. In terms of, putting money here, putting money there, when it comes to buildings, unless we really get serious about a study or a priority list of what our buildings need, I'm just not sure
Yeah.
that.
And again, I'm not saying multiple accounts. What I was saying is one stabilization fund based on municipal buildings to say, hey, if a project's coming up, at least there's something going to that. That was my thought. And again, that's why I'm opening it up. That's just a thought. It doesn't, Kim could look at it and go, no, this is dumb. You don't do it this way. And again, it's a thought process, and that's why we talk about it. Yeah, please don't say that.
The stabilization fund that we currently have is that 3 million? I don't even know what that amount is.
Yeah, three,
3.5 million.
and a half.
And if I understand it correctly, that fund is primarily putting money aside for catastrophic stuff. Like if suddenly you lose a building because of a fire, or although there's insurance, I mean, but at least that was what I was socialized to believe, that stabilization was for catastrophic events. It's kind of your rainy day fund, you just leave it alone. No, 3 million, I guess, I wouldn't suggest putting anything in there right now. I would just be more concerned about OPEB, which I think is a benefit to us.
So, I mean, in my opinion, I would kind of aim towards increasing your stabilization fund more as opposed to OPEB, just because you haven't reached your target percentage for stabilization.
Okay, and what would that be?
Well, we're gonna get those.
Yeah, all right, okay, okay.
So,
You know where we're thinking anyway.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I agree with putting money into all of them, absolutely.
Right.
Like, and I also agree with creating a stabilization fund that would be specifically for capital projects. I think that would be very helpful.
Are we able to, I'm trying to remember a few years back when we were talking about the OPEB, or before I was on, can you borrow against the OPEB fund if you need to?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'd have to.
For some reason, it sticks in the back of my mind that if you had to be able to take a loan out against or borrow against it, that we could, and that's why it was good putting it in there, because did you ever had to borrow against it?
I haven't encountered that, so I'd have to look.
Hopefully, we never have to even think about that, but anyway.
One other thing.
Yes.
And
You're up next, okay? Prep.
I don't know if there would be, certainly it would be wonderful if we could somehow reduce the tax rate. But, we're
Sure, we're going to. I'm not joking, we're going to, because the projection for next year is that the appraisals are going up again. So our tax rate's definitely.
No problems with the tax rate, Marilyn.
I'm serious.
No. So I'm not joking, so am I,
Okay, all right.
actually.
I'm just thinking in terms of.
It's truthful.
Is facing in terms of, the incredible vote that we just took, and now we know that with valuations going up, the rate may go down, but the taxes will go up. So maybe it's just something that we have to live with, but I'd like to try to offset it in some way. That's all.
So based on East Long Meadow, I just talked to a realtor, and right now our median price is 372,000 for the house. And if we stay consistent going to next year, it'll jump to 428. So.
See, my condo's going up.
But again, so the tax rate comes down.
Right.
Your assessed value goes up.
Right.
But let's face it, at the end of the day, your tax bill's gonna go up because the cost of everything goes up. And ultimately, you have to bring in more money to cover the 2.5% increase for COLA, the different costs and all. So I'd love to tell everyone, hey, your tax rate's going down, your bill is gonna drop by, $400 a year. It's just not realistic.
I tried.
Free cash discussion, or do you want to go on to other stuff?
My comments generally, I thought of when thinking about this was sort of like three things. I think obviously keeping a dedicated amount, whatever that number may be, just hold on to it. Don't spend it. I mean, the goal should not be we spend all of this. And I don't think the voters would want us to necessarily, even, with vote November, I don't think it was spend every single dollar. I think the second thing is, and this was already addressed, but I think, those type of funds, the retirement funds, whatnot, I think that's a good priority, even if it's a little bit of money. I think that should be a really important piece, depending on what that number might be. I think it's very attractive because we don't know what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years. And, retirements are going to change, and, the needs of those, that is going to probably significantly change in the coming years. I think capital projects, I think diversifying the capital projects, I think not just talking about roads, but everything that sort of encompasses roads. I think even potentially considering sidewalks as a possibility. Those type of needs that could make the town more attractive to folks wanting to move in. I think it was, obviously addressed earlier, whether it's affordable home or maybe a new type of district in town, but making it more attractive so that, younger people, some of the folks like on this council could be able to stay in the community that they grew up in, or that they, because of a job or something, have the ability to move to. So trying to make, I think, keeping the town affordable. I think what's a big selling point for our community is we are a generally, I think, affordable community. And then looking at those big ticket items like a heritage park and maybe not necessarily funding the entirety of that project, but maybe saying, okay, well, we can fund a phase of it, perhaps. So look, breaking up and trying to diversify it, not necessarily putting all of our eggs in one basket. So those were like the three kind of thoughts that I broke up the money, keeping some of it, funding those accounts, and then looking at some of those diverse capital projects that have been out in the water for the last couple of years. Okay.
I guess my primary concern is I don't want to see this, my initial, you see the 7.3 after what's coming up? My initial kind of feeling is it's kind of like a security blanket. You kind of want to keep X amount of it there, whatever that is, like John said. But I don't, if we're going to spend it, and presumably we are, I don't want to see it get cut up into ribbons until we're going to put a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit into this and that. And on one hand, I understand it's sort of responsible, but that's a good chunk of money. You could make a sizable impact on something like paving roads, a noticeable difference to residents, taxpayers. Whereas if you put a little bit into OPEB, we're going to put a little bit into the stabilization fund and a little bit here and there, it's kind of going to just feel like it's sort of floated away, And I understand not really, I get it, but I would really sort of like if we could somehow make a list of what the top priorities are.
Of course.
And either if it's in the budget as part of that, right? So I don't know if we want, and this is to speak to sort of to Greg's point about involving everyone in the budget process. I found last year my involvement on the FOC, I learned a lot about what the departments needed, what they were hearing from residents. And if we could wait sort of as the budget process rolls along, I'm certainly right now partial to, I want to pave some roads. But I guess I kind of want to see us lead this discussion with a timeline of where we're going with this. If we have this free cash, what is the timeline? If we're going to, not that we have to say, oh, we got to spend it, we got a hole burning in our pocket, but where are we going with it?
So this is the start of the budget process, and the reason part for this is for capital projects, is to give them guidance on how much to put towards capital.
So that is the express purpose of this discussion?
It's an overview of all the free cash.
Okay.
So I've gotten a general feel that, wow, we've got so much money, what do we do with all of it?
Yeah,
And I think the point comes down to is, once you start looking at all the different projects, there's not as much money as what's even close to being needed. I mean, the roads alone, we have $27 million in repairs for roads. Even if you took 3 million out of it, and again, sidewalks is a great one. We allocated over $1 million towards sidewalks, which is still in capital. Hasn't been used completely yet. There's still 600,000 or 700,000 for the sidewalks.
In what?
We bonded for sidewalks to be repaired. I believe Parker Street was done out of it for 300 and something thousand, which should leave us somewhere in the 700,000 range to continue with sidewalks.
Okay.
So again, there's money that's already been allocated to.
Pleasant Street's
coming along,
next.
yes. But again, I agree with your point. If you're going to do something, and again, that's why we've asked Tom to look at capital needs, capital projects, and start putting together a scenario of, and I think you're right, attack one project, get it done, move to the next. That's my thought anyways. Kathy, I haven't forgotten about you.
Hi
I know you're
there.
having a hard time talking. Anything with free cash that we didn't hit, or?
No, my priorities would certainly be OPEB and the roads. But I also think when I look at the rest of this agenda, we are probably our conversation would be best woven into listening to Tom tell us about the status of his goals, and then in the general discussion with the manager about what comes next. And
Awesome.
my experience working in the school department, and I'm going back now because I've been retired for some time. When building administrators had to get together to tackle the budget, and I have no idea if they still do it this way, but we would dedicate one full day so that we would determine our priorities, our goals, and then we would apply our resources accordingly. And I feel as though the magnitude of the budget, free cash availability, stabilization, the capital needs of the town cannot be discussed in 2-hour meetings, twice a month. Or even in a financial oversight committee meeting every week for 9 weeks for 2 hours. It's not possible, and it's not cohesive. So I would like to plant the seed that we should be thinking about sooner than later, a full day together and jump into this, because then you can peel the onion and really get, you use large boards and you start making out all of your priorities. So that's what I have to say. But I'm mostly interested at this point in hearing what Tom has to say. And then I'm certain and I don't have a clue what he's prepared. So it's not as though we've spoken, but I bet you that there's going to be significant overlap in what he has to tell us and what his thoughts are at this point.
I tend to agree. Connor, anything?
Nothing is right.
Okay. You get the last word, and then we're going to move on, because I know the next portion is going to be very similar. So
It was just one quick point. I just wanted to give you and your team, Kim, kudos, because this was a excellent recap sheet for us of the current state of affairs. So thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on. We're in 8E2. 8E2 is discuss life insurance for town council members. So I asked this to be put on. So we're at 7 years, and we haven't looked into our pay increase or anything like that. And I personally have no appetite to. I think we get compensated. Again, I would open it up to anyone. But we have had a sitting member who had passed away before, and it got me thinking that most employers offer some type of a life insurance. So I did up some basic numbers. The town usually does a $5,000 life insurance policy, and this is if someone passes while an elected official. It's 60 cents per pay period, or $31 for the year per person. I think that's a small amount. I wouldn't look just for the counselors. I would look for all elected officials. I came up with a number. If we did a $10,000 policy, which is $1.20 a pay period, to give everyone $10,000 in life insurance if they passed, would be $385 a year, give or take. Again, these are just rough numbers given to me. I think it's something we should consider having the budget cycle coming up. I think, God forbid, anyone passes while they're in office, it would be something that the town could go and say to the family, this meant a lot. We have a life insurance policy, and Again, it's not a lot, but I mean, the last time we were running around trying to find out what budgets had enough money to send flowers. And I think in this case, it's something that I would like as a council to think about. Very small amount of money to do all the school committee members and the council members. I'm not talking life insurance or anything like that. I was only looking at health insurance. Sorry, I'm not talking that. I'm only talking a life insurance policy.
But only for the duration of the service. type of
Yeah, when,
service. So I
exactly.
would have to die while I was in office.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. If, God forbid, anyone passed a while in office, it's,
Okay,
and again, I don't know what the council thinks. I haven't talked to anyone about it. I had asked Joan to get me the numbers months ago, and our schedule really hasn't given me the opportunity to bring it up, but I know during the budget cycle, this would be something that we should consider. And like I said, it's completely open. I don't know what anyone's thoughts are on it.
I guess the first thing I thought of was, is this something that has been in place in other communities?
So prior to the change of government, the town of East Long Meadow, all elected officials received health insurance and life insurance. Right before the change, one of the selectmen made a motion to do away with all insurances for elected officials in town. We won't get into the reasonings or anything, but again, health insurance is very expensive. I can understand that. Life insurance is very inexpensive, and to me, it's just a nice way, you know, God forbid something does happen. It's just something there to say, hey, we did appreciate all the service that he did. Connor, thoughts? Marilyn?
I have life insurance through the town as a compensated retiree. I was in an elected office when the rules were different. And so I have life insurance and health insurance. I pay 22 cents a month for my health insurance. I mean, for my life insurance. I wish it was health insurance. For life insurance. And I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I think there is a way that perhaps we can put, it seems more complicated for people to have life insurance just for a short period of time while you're in office. If we were to create some kind of benevolent fund or something that would be there for that purpose, if someone passed away in office or if someone were terminally ill. I mean, there are lots of things that happen in our lives. It just seems complicated to me to have life insurance just for the 3 years or the 6 years that you serve.
21. No.
And then you're hopeful.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you lose it unless you can continue it on, unless there's a place where you can have it while you're in office, and then there's the ability to continue to carry it on your own if you want it. Does that make any sense to people? I mean, it just, I don't know.
Again, what I was looking for is a low-cost benefit, and I don't think you can get much lower.
I mean, I agree with the cost. I'm just looking at what the, whether you're really gonna, I mean, let's hope that we're all gonna live.
Let's hope no one ever benefits
Right,
from it,
right.
except the life insurance company. $4 a year. Connor?
I mean, it's not necessarily a bad idea, but personally, I would have no need for it because my employer sponsors life insurance being an active employee. So it's kind of the same sort of thing
So
with the
truthfully,
council too, though, that
I don't think any of us will ever have a need for it because none of us will ever benefit from it.
But I think
Obviously,
your focus
yeah.
is good, in terms of having something in place to assist someone in crisis. I have no problem with that.
And again,
I
it's,
just-
like I said, it's more, obviously, it's for who you've left behind.
Right.
And that's my thought process. And like I said, it's not something, it's something I wanted to bring out so that everyone heard it and can think about it. And then at another meeting, we'll look into it further. Matt?
Yeah, I'm interested in discussing it further. I need kind of more solid figures in front of me. I really don't have an opinion. Either way, I guess my major concern, I just know nothing about how, that would work, how life insurance is provided by an employer, what that would cost the town, I guess would be my primary concern, if any. But I'm open to further discussion.
John?
Yeah, I think it definitely warrants another discussion. I would want something that actually is not, I don't know what I'm saying here, not necessarily like big, something that's enough where it's not like pennies or peanuts.
Right.
Something that, could deliver the other side. So that would just be my only concern. I'd rather go with none or, something full blown. Half.
Kathy, any thoughts?
Nothing that hasn't already been said.
Okay.
But I'd like, as Matt said, let's look at some actual numbers. So we, you know what you're talking about.
Okay, I will, I'll reach out through the town manager to Joan and see if she can put something together. Okay, next is the Westcom bond. We had talked about, or I had asked you about this at the last meeting, Tom. We had received a letter.
Yep.
I don't think it's necessary to read the whole thing into the record. I don't know.
The agreement for the district allows for the board of directors to make these kind of votes.
Yep.
As a body.
And
for some reason, it says it in the same thing that we're supposed to just let you know that we voted that way, that there's no action need be taken.
So voted that way is a request in the amount of $3 million to increase the bond.
For the new building.
Our new bond request will not exceed 16.3 million for the rehab of the building. And if I understand correctly, well, we have been getting grants and stuff, and hopefully some of the funding and all will be taken care of through the state.
That's correct.
But this is more of a notification coming through us.
Just because it's required in the agreement.
Okay. Town manager goals. We have set some hefty goals.
Can I take them out of order?
So
pleasure.
What I'm going to do is we had submitted 4 goals to you. There's health insurance analysis. The second was a grant writer. Third was municipal light plant, and 4 was ongoing projects such as 70 Maple Street, Heritage, office space needs, town hall usage, and stuff like that. Those were our 4 main goals. So the point of this is we had said, hey, maybe quarterly or twice a year, we'll actually sit together, see where we're at with the goals, see if there's anything that you need from us to help you achieve the goals that we had set for you and where we can go with it. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Do you mind if I take them out of order? Only because there's a couple gentlemen back there that may help me with the municipal light plant, should you have questions. Andrew Shorts here from Westfield Gas and Electric, and Ryan Quimby, our illustrious IT director.
Would you like them to come forward?
They don't, not necessarily, in case, my explanation, yeah, hopefully not. So obviously, we've been pouring through a agreement and negotiating with Westfield Gas and Electric's Whip City Fiber. I had forwarded you a sort of a estimate of what we're calling sort of this phase 1 to get this off the ground. The real issue with this project, like all projects, is the construction cost. So throw in the initial work and coordinating with utility companies for spot on the pole. We're sort of, no matter if we start right now, we're a couple, 2-3 years out from putting any fiber on a utility pole. Now, if we decide to do some underground areas, we don't need to go through the utility companies. We don't need permission to be in our right of way, for instance. So that, of course, now I'm out of order. So basically, what I'm looking at here is this estimate for designing of our entire system and the applications for poles in town to sort of get us rolling here. And this will basically give us an act, once we're designed and we know how much make-ready work we're gonna have to do on these poles, whatever our cost estimate is will actually become real. Right now, it's sort of this much a foot and this much a pole, and once we do this part, and for a total of $737,234, we get this sort of phased approach where we have the system designed and figure out our actual costs, and then we can market, which one of our favorite words from this process, or mine anyway, fiber hoods. So the town's chunked out into the areas called fiber hoods, and we can sort of market and figure out which areas we're gonna get the best payback from. So that when we do roll out money in a sort of a phased approach, if we get something like 75-80% take back from a fiber hood, we will have revenue coming into our new account that will be created duly. So just so happens we have about 621,000 in undesignated ARPA funds, which could get us most of the way to this goal, and the aforementioned free cash to sort of fill in this gap. So that's where we are on the MLP, sort of play-by-play. So if you have any questions on where we're at or where we're going, I'd be happy to answer anything I can. And if I cannot, just got back up in the audience.
So of this sheet that you sent us this afternoon, these total dollar amounts, is that just to get it designed, or does that actually start any work?
No, so this is the bottom number is the design, engineering, design, field services, and then the top is whole application fees, which basically you have to.
So there's no construction
Right,
whatsoever.
okay.
That's to get the poles. Is that even,
It's
that's the permits for the poles?
Correct.
Is that any of the work on the poles to make space for us?
Is it my understanding that they're telling us how much work they have to do to make space on that pole, which then Westfield will go out and double check their numbers to make sure that's actually how much we should be charged for the utility company to do this work. Sound right?
Yeah, I think it's very accurate.
You want to come on up? Andrew Short,
Come on up.
everybody.
You guys have been here all night. Come on up. Good evening.
Evening. Andrew Short, Westfield Gas and Electric with City Fiber.
Ron Quimby, IT. I think everybody knows me.
Did you spell that name?
Yeah, so I think Tom's very accurate. We've provided an estimate based on what we can see in the town. But to know exactly what the build out would cost, this phased approach doesn't commit the town to building something today, but it gives the town a real accurate idea of what would be the cost to build out the fiber network. And as Tom mentions, timeframe wise, you're dealing with utilities and different companies and different agreements. So it is 2 to 3 years away. Even if this work was done today, you're still looking 2 to 3 years before fiber starts getting strong. But again, if those areas of town that have conduit or something like that we can access, that could expedite things. And then also using this, you can start getting an idea for which areas of the community want this now. And maybe those areas become your targeted areas. So you break up, once this report's done, you'll break East Longmeadow up into what we call FSAs, so basically fiber hoods. So there's smaller areas, so you break up the town, and then we can start seeing which of those particular fiber hoods has the most interest, and then perhaps that makes sense to start building there, and then you can start getting revenue back.
One more.
Yep, go ahead, sorry.
So under the make ready work and stuff, especially with all the poll applications, does it make sense to necessarily spend all of it doing all of those applications up front if we may never move to some of those fiber hoods for a long period of time? Because couldn't the condition or what's on those poles change from the utility company before we actually get to our actual work on them in the future? And then wouldn't we have to like redo that work all over again?
It's, we have to get our name on the list for, to even get started. And then for like Verizon, it can take up to 2 years for them to get out and actually check the poles for us to even let us know what's on there. What's been nice is they're replacing a lot of the poles in town now, going all the way down Porter Road. So it's saving us money for having to do the make ready work and pay for those pole replacements. But if there's like, so if we have a fiber service area that has next to no interest, we can withdraw those. The poll applications, I believe we'd still have to pay for, but we can deprioritize those and take those off the list. So then we don't have to worry about doing any make ready work there. But the applications we would have to cover up front just to even get started.
So if I can jump in, the make ready work is going to be based on the fiber hoods that we choose to go through. In other words, you're not just going to make every single pole in town ready all at the same time. You're going to look and say, hey, this section behind Heritage Park, 80% take rate that they said, that's where we're going to do the make ready work first. So that way there we can get it up and going before we go on.
It's going to be kind of a little bit of a dancing game as far as the make ready work goes. So it's going to be in parallel, the make ready process and the engineering. Once the engineering is done, and we have a better idea of what it's going to cost to build it out and what our fiber service areas are going to look like, then Whip City Fiber has a map-based system where people can express their interests, not really commit to anything, but express their interests. So then we can decide, okay, Ryan and Tom's neighborhood's going to get first priority.
Heard that way too many times.
Flip the coin is.
And then we prioritize the make ready work in that neighborhood in order to get that moving along. If we have some that have none, then we let the utilities know, Whip City lets utilities know that we're not going to need those. You can take them off the list.
So this is for Tom, 620,000 in ARPA. When does ARPA have to be committed by?
September of 24. So in
September.
Yep. And then spent by December of 25.
So it made sense to me to if we're going to be going forwards with this internet service and the contract and all, to look to spend the 620,000 in ARPA funds that have to be spent pretty quickly, and then supplement it with free cash. Again, that's not a vote for tonight or anything. That's just something to think about. And that way there, the first process is taken care of, because it's a multi-year process. It's not something, I mean, even if we said, hey, there's $18 million, let's do this, you're not going to be to my house within 3 to 5 years probably.
And the goal with having the engineering done is utilizing our existing fiber network to help feed those fiber service areas better, to bring that estimate down from the original construction estimate, bring that number down.
Questions, Connor?
I would just say, I mean, obviously we're not deciding tonight, but as we get closer to it, in terms of deciding whether we use ARPA or something else to move forward with the project, I think I would just like a better understanding of like more current numbers on what total costs might look like to actually start building some of these areas out, because I know those original projections have long since changed, and that might change our idea of whether we even want to proceed at this point.
Sure. Yeah, so those numbers have been provided for the full, like, we actually ran some numbers with some bonding put into the table. So I can forward those to you tonight.
You just have to keep in mind those construction numbers are based on just X amount of miles per road, X amount overhead, X amount underground, not utilizing our existing network or any real world type scenarios.
I think, and one of the results you'll get from this is that design. So you'll know exactly, well, based on economics today, you'll know exactly what it would cost.
And I think the main thing, like you said, doing it by fiber hoods is that you get this section up and running so that you start bringing in funding to cover the cost of the bond as you're doing the next section. I mean,
So this is
really the
snowball.
In order to get this going, this is sort of the limited liability option. We're gonna find out if it's too much money and we don't want to do this. Well, that we can check that off too. If we decide we don't want to spend this kind of money on fiber, then we can stop talking about fiber. You know what I mean? So this will get us to a point where, you know what? These numbers look a lot better now that we've invested some money into an actual design and we know exactly what we're going to build now, right? And so this $20 million or $18 million becomes $14 million, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does become 26 and we say, all right, wait a minute. Maybe we got to rethink how we build this out, how we roll this out. But we got to, we got to do something. I mean, this, speaking of overwhelming votes,
right?
This one was even more overwhelming than the school vote, not numbers wise, but percentage wise. This is what the town wants.
Yeah. They
They want another option for internet and communication. This is what they want.
I've got a question for Kim. So if MLP is not an enterprise fund, but like a separate entity, can the town, from its free cash, loan that entity money so that once the MLP is making money, then it can pay the town back?
I believe you can. I want to double check on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to use free cash with the, the contingency that you would want it paid back.
14% interest. Trying to make money for us. Yeah, and I'm just,
But I mean, are you
curiosity type.
Are you referring to this 112 or that you would need, or are you referring to kind of the whole thing if you chose?
Well, again, I don't think the town can afford without bonding or whatever, or the MLP having to bond, but I'm just thinking if we take 500,000 and say, okay, we're loaning the MLP 500,000 along with whatever they're getting for the ARPA funds to get it all going. I just want to make sure that once the MLP is making money, that can be reverted back to our general fund.
I mean, the other thing is that once you actually get into the construction, you're actually bonding for those payments as well. So you're capitalizing those interest payments, you're paying it from the bond. So it's not like you would need the money from the town to support it up until revenue starts flowing in.
I just don't want the MLP, if it's separate, like Westfield is pretty much completely separate, to all of a sudden go, yeah, we're going to buy 8 new trucks instead of giving the town $1 million back in revenue. It's always a possibility. I always think of the worst scenarios,
We're still working on that piece of it. We haven't even created that account yet. So even if
we haven't voted on anything.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There was no reason for that language to be there. We'd have nowhere to put that money at this point. We're appropriated to. So.
And when would you be looking for a vote to move forwards? At our next February meeting?
Yeah, I'd like to have it back on the agenda again in February. I'll get some more information about the full rollout price and, like Kim said, what that bond payment looks like with the new accounting. And we'll have those numbers for ARPA and whatever the balance of free cash would be to roll that out. I want to say additionally,
Bless you.
a authorization to sign an agreement attached to this first invoice here for it's a 5-year, like, no compete or what, they're not gonna design it for us and then have us take off and go somewhere else. So we have to stick with them it's a 5-year agreement. It's basically what it is.
And if I understand correctly, any
I'll forward that as well.
years requires the council to vote on.
Correct.
Somewhere that's stuck in the back of my mind. Okay. I think that was with the trash contract.
Copier contract, we did that too. Won't do that again.
And I'm assuming, Ryan, obviously you've been intricately involved and nothing's jumped out at you as far as
No, and
things are
originally looked at doing like pilot areas, and like one of my concerns with a lot of government projects is you do a pilot area, we build that out, and then we find out that it's not advantageous to do the rest of the town. Now you have to maintain the entire infrastructure for a small subset, where if we can design the whole thing, and hopefully it's gonna be much more affordable than the estimates are, which I'm confident it will be, then we can build out the whole project. We know what we're up against. We can target the ones that are gonna be our highest return on investment. And it's just, snowball that into getting all of our fiber service areas or fiber hoods lit up.
Beautiful.
I just like to have it planned out and everything squared away first.
That was your first goal. What's your second? Thank you.
Andrew, thank you. Ryan, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, hold on. Get situated again. Thank you. Agreement, cost estimate. That was great. Okay, health insurance. Health insurance analysis was the original goal. I think we had talked a while back that was gonna sort of spill into all of our insurances. Might as well take a look at everything while we're doing it. So I have one vendor who has given me sort of an analysis for our health insurance going to the GIC. Government Insurance
Collaborative.
Which we still have a few questions on. And then I'm waiting for another full analysis of health insurance as well as property and casualty from another party. So that had started when did we, like 3 weeks ago? So I think they said around 3 weeks or a month. So I should have an update on a full update. I mean, on probably in our February meeting on where we stand. A little bit jumped out in the first analysis, and it seems like there's some cost savings to be had. Again, I don't want to get too far into it, and that's why I didn't bring any of it tonight, because I still had some questions on where some of the numbers came from, and I just want to make sure it's a polished product before I give it to you. And I kind of wanted to give you the whole thing at the same time. So that's sort of well underway, and hopefully I'll have something for you soon on that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Analysis is, like I said,
Yeah.
I think it's something long overdue, so.
Grant writer, she's sitting right over there. No, in all honesty, Rebecca found out on her first day that she was going to be the planning director in a week, which came with it about 3 or 4 grants that Bailey had in the works, which she ushered to completion, one of which was a Delta grant with PVPC to figure out how to structure operationally her position, which has been defined, and there's a job description, but we're trying to kind of figure out where that's going to go operationally, so that I think admittedly, Mary and I did a lot of sort of the same things, or you put out that fire, I put out this fire, without really any, Tom, you're on planning and DPW and police and fire, and I'll do this stuff, so we're trying to figure out organizationally what that's going to look like. Fortunately, she has a skill set that, not that I missed it on her resume, that she's got experience writing grants and she's quite good at it. But we still want to figure out if, even though she has that talent, if her office is going to have more work than, or that she's going to have to do more work than, and not have time to sort of administer all of our grants, which, as you all know, or maybe you don't, grants take a lot of time to put together. Most of them require either a monetary match from the community, or more likely a match of labor from the community, which most people don't have time for, which is, I suppose, why the grant writer is here. So short answer is we're going to work on this grant to sort of identify her position and how much time she has to be the grant writer and sort of check this goal off for the town. Or we'll continue on a previous path, which was see what kind of consulting services are out there, because adding a new employee may not be the best option. So we've got this in the works. We're trying to figure out, we're still kind of molding what her position is going to be, and this grant will help that. And in the interim, I mean, whenever there's a grant, everybody's just pitching in whenever they can. We have 7 people putting projects and applications together for the Mass Gaming Commission submission that's due on January 31st. So we're still chugging along, and like I said, Rebecca deserves a lot of kudos for most of our grants recently. And I'll probably, make her polish this one up that's due the 31st as well. So that's sort of where we kind of stand on the grant writer. And hopefully, and I don't know if there's even a schedule yet, or if the grant's been offered for the Delta grant, but she's already started collecting information from surrounding communities. Long Meadow, for instance, as luck would have it, their deputy town manager is also the planning and community development director, which ours isn't by title, only by necessity at this point. And so they've been chatting about what the demands of the job are when you sort of have that much to do, and do you have time for an extra 10 hours a week on just grant writing and grant administration. So we're gathering the information to make sort of an informed decision on her position moving forward, and if that includes grant writer or not. So that's where we're at with grant writer. That was a lot of words.
I mean, again, we listed it number 2 because we know there's a lot of funding out there available. And I think in years past, we missed out on some because we weren't able to apply because we didn't have someone that, we were using our department heads and stuff trying to, and again, they just didn't have time to do it. And that was our thought process. And like I said, if there's something you need through us or whatever, reach out, definitely.
Okay.
Ongoing projects is your last one. That's probably the longest one, isn't it?
There are some ongoing issues, projects, all sorts of good stuff. Well, so I heard somebody mention it already, and so I guess I'll just cross it off the list. I sort of second that to get 382 back to the forefront, and if that means an action item or whatever for executive session, next meeting, I would support that. Again, much like the fiber project, either yes or no, because the more projects that we have just kind of like, hey, what should we do? there's sort of less time to think about the things that are the priorities. So kind of like Kat said, if we have our sort of priority list together, what we want to do, anyway, we can talk about 382 more if it's, I mean, obviously it's your pleasure, but I would like to, obviously that is a large amount of money. You know, I'll go as far as to say, I think it still is a need for the town and a good investment for the town. But we can have a further discussion about that next time. It's sort of the fun part about ongoing projects, right? Like, why are they still ongoing? Like, why don't we just finish them? Well, it requires a certain amount of action from more than one party, perhaps. So, Heritage, at some point, the design was at like 95%. And there was one more meeting, and I don't really even remember who it was with or who was opining at the point. But somehow the last design wasn't the optimal design or the one that the most people wanted to see. So we have to revisit what we want to see out of that site and then finish the design. And the bad news is then we're going to sit on it, because now we're only a year and a half to 2 years away from the construction of this whole corridor. And the last thing we're going to do is put $9 or $10 million into a park and have DOT run right through it. I wish I could say that they won't do that, but it's inevitable. There's a new shared use path over there on that side and right in front of the park that is going with the project. They're not at a final design, which means they're not at a final layout, which means we can't do an entrance that we want because it'll probably get ripped out because, you know, the stanchion for the traffic light has to move 6 inches because that's the new design. Now, all of a sudden, it's in our new construction. So, again, that's obviously a conversation that can be had, but by the time we, you know, bid out a Heritage or decide to put that much money into a Heritage and construction starts, both of those construction crews will be on top of each other, most likely. And so as much as certain scenarios that have come up recently and our need for more fields, I don't know if the $9 million at Heritage, now I know if we take the building out, we'll drop 5.5 or something like that. But, you know, by the timing just isn't right anymore. Yeah. And maybe the timing was right, because if we did it 3 years ago, something might have happened to our new construction unforeseen by this new corridor project, meaning maybe the culvert had to get replaced and elongated and the pond had to get dropped 6 inches. You know, maybe it's a blessing in disguise. I don't think we should bail, because I think a lot of people put a lot of time and effort into coming up with a design that really does make sense. I mean, there was a community building, there was a whole lot of amenities on that park, and but with another $10 million project headed right by it in 2 years, it's probably not the best investment at this point.
So do you think we should finalize what we're looking for in the park? I mean, like you said, the design's 95% done.
I do.
So finalize that, but just don't start any construction or anything like that until such time as the North Main Street corridor is taken care of.
Or at least we have a final design.
Because I know we've been talking, and part of it is if we're going to do some type of a building in the front, we have to subdivide the parcel.
Correct.
Because that's a municipal building and we can't get a park grant when there's a municipal building within the park. So these are all things though that we can be working on and doing, because
yes,
FY '27, which is I believe when the road is being done, if I read the TIP program correctly, is going to be here before we know it.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yep. So that's sort of the Heritage update, I guess. I don't know, did you did you have a question? I feel like I saw you.
Just had a comment. I mean, I think it will be incumbent upon us to finish the design, so I definitely agree with that. I think the other thing that should be noted is that we've already invested money as a town vis-a-vis CPC funds to get to that point.
Correct.
Signing it. So I think
Yeah.
having something, now it's $9 million, is it maybe only a third of it? Is it only 20% of it? Is it half of it? Whatever it is, I think we should come up with something where we get the biggest needs. I think it was mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was as a small portion of it, but there was a playground that a resident came to us a few months back and had some concerns about, so.
The safety of the.
Repair, so,
Yeah.
Maybe looking at
That was
small.
done, right? The repairs on the playground up there, I believe.
At
I
Heritage.
think so, yeah.
W and the rec got together.
Yeah.
Ordered the parts and all.
Yeah.
so,
Okay,
yeah.
so, but addressing, maybe like the first immediate
Situational
needs of the design, like what are like the 5 or 10, whatever, most attractive things of the design? And then maybe after things are completed in a couple of years, maybe revisiting it. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
maybe breaking it up into,
Did you say phase it out before? I feel like you did, okay.
so something to that effect, but doing
Phasing of
something
it will allow us to apply for multiple park grants. It's
Correct.
Just one.
so that we're not necessarily losing
Losing
that
it.
funding that CPC vis-a-vis the council
Yep.
already put into it.
And then we can get it off the accounting books as well.
We did enjoy that. Move it along.
How many lists I got going, jeepers?
So,
70 Maple. I met with West Mass Development a couple weeks ago, and we've put, we're about to put an application in for targeted brownfields.
Wonderful.
To see what they can do about fixing that up for us. I think originally we had thought of, I don't know if anybody, I guess I haven't heard anybody say anything good about the town acquiring this building, which we didn't really pay much for at all. But I think our thought was, and I'll sort of segue in a few minutes to the other thing I'm the most excited about, was to acquire the property to sort of control what goes in there at 70 Maple Street. It's an industrial zoned parcel, and there was a time when that railroad was going, that was the perfect use for that site. If we're serious about our center town district, which I hope that we are, having that parcel is going to sort of be a key cog to Maple Street for sure. Also, if we do get some help cleaning up the site, now we're sitting on a very valuable parcel of land on Maple Street with hopefully the center town district over top of it. So that's ongoing. Obviously, there's no guarantees on what's going to happen. I think we thought at minimum, we just put out an RFP and have somebody take the land off our hands again, perhaps after we create the zone, or even change the zone if we see the need to do so, so that somebody else can have it and somebody else can clean it and somebody else can put what we want there. So the options are sort of good. I think we got to get it cleaned up. But again, segue to the Centertown district. We have a grant for that, creating that, $45,000 to create that. That's starting soon. And should, by the timeline and assuming the town's appetite for it, be in place at the end of this year. That includes the public outreach and the public forums and the whatever, which is aggressive. And I didn't bother to let them know how hard our bylaws are to change, in particular.
They're easy.
No, but I'm serious. I think I've heard some people mention it, and the Centertown thing is really going to revitalize sort of what our community is downtown. Just for an option, for nothing else, right? You don't have to do anything except for here's another option. If you want to do something else, you can also do this, right? I think we're ready to sort of make this next step in what East Long Meadow's going to look like. And I think that sort of the walkable and the affordable housing and the whole bit. Also, I'm doing a lot of segueing. I've been in conversations with the owners of the rail trail property from Maple Street to Westwood, and they have sort of tentatively at least shown interest or agreeing to donating the parcel of land to the town in exchange for certain site plan requirement reductions on Center Village. I think they had a couple of parking things and an area thing when the bulk requirement for area when they put this whole thing in, that they needed more land to sort of satisfy that requirement. So that's something that, if we're serious about sort of moving that rail trail down too, that's something we'll have to work with planning board and, the owners of the property to try to push that across the line. But again, all in the same sort of ilk of trying to revitalize this corridor downtown, and sort of just keep going with the bike trail. Like I said, the shared use path would go in front of Heritage, cross at Harkness, and then we just come right back down and meet up with the other one. So we're basically creating a loop to walk. That's going to go by the senior center. So now we're sort of really interconnecting these places and points in town that will all of a sudden hopefully have a whole different look, because they're allowed to build something that maybe they weren't allowed to build before, for these developers, I mean. So anyway, that was like 7 projects in one, but I think you can see how they all tie together, and sort of planning and development really sort of can revitalize your community if all the dominoes are to fall like they should. So, and that rail trail, we have a grant. Mark Berman from DPW is working on a trails grant to sort of set up the design of that portion of the rail trail. So, anything else? What'd I miss? That's an outstanding answer. Yeah, I mean, there's a zillion more things, and a million more shout outs I want to make, because obviously we have an amazing staff here. But that's I guess I'll close with that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So that's your goals.
That was only the goals? That wasn't the open discussion? Oh, nobody else?
We haven't gotten to.
Nobody else talked?
Yeah.
Oh, that's because nobody else has talked. All right.
Actually, I think you've hit on a lot of stuff with the open discussion.
Right.
And again, you're not going anywhere, are you? I have 3 quick questions for you.
No, I just need to move.
Stand up, yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Actually, they're on the last paperwork that I just got quarterly. Legal services. It looks like we're just about out of money for legal services. At some point, are we going to be looking for a free cash transfer to at least put money in there? So, I mean, I know.
The answer is yes, we will be requesting that. I think we can probably try to move some out of the reserve fund, but we're already at 90%. Halfway through, so.
And again, these are just numbers I saw. Dispatch. So I know we had said our share was going to be roughly 160,000.
Yep.
And it looked like we only had 90,000 in there that was already spent. And this is account 299. Does that mean we're going to have to shuffle to get another 70,000 into it, or?
Was it 160 or was that I thought it was 50% this year?
No.
So it was the whole
75.
160?
No, 75, 25.
So
That's as low as you can go, because the state does the 75% reimbursement.
Oh,
So that's not till
it's just something I saw.
25.
Oh, so,
Yeah.
so the
Good.
160, so
Our
what
assessment,
we've spent this year is for the entire year then?
yeah, it should be.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, that's why I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
confused.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
No, no,
Because-
that-
Making sure, that's all. I wasn't sure if we, like, give all the money ahead of time. It didn't say that it was really encumbered, so it looks like we said, here, this is our share, and we paid the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Veteran Services, same basic question. It looks like $67,398 in salary. Did we have to, does that go to another town to pay the veteran service agent?
It's our district assessment.
Okay.
Same as.
So it doesn't come out on a monthly basis?
That was
So
a
it
one
seemed-
time, and we had under budgeted that. We had already done a transfer for 15 just to pay that bill.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, like I said, if we just pay it all at once, or if each month they come to us and go, this is your share for this month.
No, they're just
That's a
assessing.
good thing then. Questions?
You covered them all.
Yeah. Any questions? Kathy?
Wake up.
Open discussion questions, anything?
I'm good. I think we've covered all our tracks here
How'd I do, Kath? All right?
very nicely.
So, action items for the next meeting, I know we had talked about the MLP and the bond payments, costs and stuff like that.
Yep.
We'll look to, we've already talked about an executive session for the next meeting for 382 North Main. I think there's 3, but I don't remember the other. We'll come up with it.
There might be a health insurance update, but I don't want to put that on there
Okay,
as a,
okay.
there'll be a couple of financial things, that Trails grant. I think we have a match, it's 8,500, that might be ready to go. It needs to be appropriated before the application.
Okay.
Okay.
And then our gift accounts, just the sort of.
Yep.
Accept them as, yeah.
And then I personally just want to give a shout out to Jeannie and the girls in the office. I've seen what they've had to do lately with ballot applications.
By mail application.
By mail applications coming back. On top of that, the dog licenses all coming through at the same time.
Census
And
forms.
they all have stacks of bills that they're going through, and quite amazing watching them. And she still gets us all the paperwork, so thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, I would entertain John's question. I would entertain.
Well, I know you had mentioned CPC applications from 2 weeks ago. I don't know if there was any movement on those.
I talked with Tony, the chair, and he's got 2 applications coming forward. So I told him I need them by the week before the meeting, and a letter of recommendation from the CPC,
So I think we have to advertise because
public hearings.
public hearings. So, and I think we have to put it in the paper pretty quick in order to get it onto
Yeah.
our February meeting. And Connor.
And from Capitol, there may be a third one that might be proposed. So,
Not CPC.
Hey,
yeah, for
Yeah.
CPC.
Okay.
Proposed, but not an approved application right now. Okay.
Yeah,
Not a-
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
a Proposed application for the.
For the
upcoming year.
April 1st one.
Okay.
Okay.
But again, that's
Yeah.
something we'll look at pretty quick, because even if we don't get the exact paperwork from Tony, we can actually at least get
I
the,
can get the legal notice in the paper. Yeah.
because I think that's important, because I know if they're gonna demo the portion of the Brown Farm, if we end up approving it, it's probably a lot easier to do in the winter.
Did receive a 1-sentence recommendation for both projects, but I don't know the amount, what account they're coming from. So I'll try to get more information from the CPC.
They're both coming out of recreation,
Okay.
but you needed to hear it from him, so.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, John, for that. We entertain a motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
John? Matt? I'm a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
And Kathy?
Yes.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.